Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Recher podcast. Hope everybody is having a happy Wednesday. Happy hump day to you and yours out there. Man, we are jacked up for today's show. It has been a great week. You see, we got some new hats added to the mantle. We got a Jesuit hat here. We got a TC hat here alongside our USF and our UT and our Rays hats. And listen, this is what we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to build the background because we do everything here, showing love to our Team Tampa Bay members and all around the state of Florida and pretty much all around the country. You know me, it doesn't just stop here in Tampa. Follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. I'm posting videos every single day. So make sure you go out there and support. It's great to support the podcast, but go support my social media as well, man. We got to continue to share all this stuff. If you have YouTube, if you have Twitter, if you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you got the YouTube. Again, these shorts, these clips that I make, like them, share them, please. That's how we're going to grow this thing to make it bigger and badder than ever. And I'll never forget you guys at the beginning. We got over 1,000 subscribers. Let's try to get up to 2,000 now as well. I cut up some of the interviews yesterday with head coach Alex Golesh from the USF football team. What a great chat with Coach Golesh. If you missed that, I implore you to go back and go check it out. Not right now. Wait until the show's over. But wow, what an unbelievable chat with such a great guy. And what he had to say about Byron Brown, because I know there was a lot of people that were coming up to me. Jay, is Byron coming back? Is he going to transfer? Is he going to stay here? Well, now we know for sure that he can, he locked it in, letting us know Byron Brown will be back in the 2025 season. He appreciates everything that Coach Golesh and the team is, everybody at USF has done for him. And we'll probably get Byron Brown on here soon. We got to get him on the Recher podcast. I cannot wait to talk to Double B 17. It'll be great to see him back under center for the Bulls. Also, the chat with Brian Engblom yesterday, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, FanDuel Sports Network's Tampa Bay Lightning TV analyst. What he had to say about John Cooper and his career as a lawyer helping him as an NHL head coach. That was a really, really good conversation. That is up on my social media as well. And of course, I can't do this without you. Let's show some love to the Recher podcast. We got to come up with a name. I know our guys on the morning show, Pat and Aaron, they have the Goon Squad. What would my viewers, my listeners be? Let's try to come up with a name there. Dolan, my guy, what's going on, buddy? Janet Best, always appreciate you tuning in to the show. David Terry, J, Big 4 Nation Showdown. LFG, cannot wait tonight. Canada, Sweden. Who are you rooting for? Cooper, Point, Hagel, Sorelli, or Hetty? I almost feel bad for Hetty. He's by himself, so I think we should probably root for Sweden. Oh, my guy, Hammer. Hammer, I got some news for you, Hammer. We're going to talk in the next day or two, getting everything clarified as far as going forward for advertisements here on the Recher podcast. If you would like to advertise, reach out to me, DM me, and we are going to make it happen. My guy Hammer, me and him, we're going to do some big things here on the podcast. J-Mac, nice intro. Thank you. And Bart Hill. Bart has been one of our big supporters. Whatever I do, he's there. And I love you, Bart. Thank you, pal. Ryan B., how was the baseball game last night, Jay? Really good. I mean, the game between, and you see, again, the hat right here, Tampa Catholic, CDS, Carrollwood Day School. What an impressive performance on the mound last night from this young man. I'm going to pull out. I just want to make sure that I tweeted it out properly here. Because this kid was bowling last night. And I wanted to make sure that I showed him some love. Nicholas Rydell, class of 2025. Carrollwood Day School, a Newberry College commit. This kid plays, he's a pitcher, third base, outfielder. Fastball topped out at 89, it says on Twitter, but he was balling last night. Listen, TC won, Okay. And shout out to my guy, Paulie Russo, who we had on the program yesterday. But Nick was shoving last night. And if it wasn't for a couple of miscues on defense there in the 7th inning, CDS probably wins that game. So a really, really good time to be able to go out and watch Nick Rydell do his thing at CDS. I was very impressed there. But, I'm going to try to get out to as many games as humanly possible. Tomorrow night, USF and Memphis. Go out to that game tomorrow night. Men's basketball, USF. Go USFBulls.com, the number 14 team in the country. And if you remember, the Bulls went there last year and beat Penny Hardaway's team. So, wow, what an upset that would be tomorrow night at the Yuengling Center. Stephanie, another OG supporter, and I appreciate you guys so much for everything that you do. But, yeah, what should be the name for the J Recher podcast? Listeners, viewers, I don't know, the J Squad or something like that. It's got to be something good. I'm open to anything and everything. All right, big show. Of course, today, 12:15 today, Neil Solondz is going to check in, raise the radio voice. Spring training down there in Port Charlotte, Media Day yesterday. Eric Neander spoke, Kevin Cash spoke. What did they have to say pertaining to the season coming up? Cannot wait to talk to our guy, Neil Solondz, at 12:15. At 12:45 today, Wes Mendes is going to join us. This is a kid that I saw absolutely ball out for Jesuit. Now he is up at Florida State. And I don't know if you've seen this. I tweeted out yesterday. Florida State has a starting rotation with all kids that went to Jesuit High School. So Coach Miguel Menendez, I texted him today. He's super. It's funny because I was actually doing the interview yesterday with our guy, Paulie Russo. And during that time, Miguel texted me. And he was like, hey, check this out. And Jamie Arnold, who is projected to be a top pick in the draft next year, he's a starter. Joey Vellini, who was a starter at pitcher at USF, he's the second starter, a Saturday starter, and then Wes Mendes is the starter on Sunday. They also have John Abraham that can pitch as well. So they're 3 starters, all from the same high school. And shout out to Florida State. They were able to set that up today. So we're going to hear from Wes at 12:45 today. 1 o'clock, Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. He joins us on the program to look back at the Lightning week that they just had. It's almost like we didn't want them to stop playing. We talked about that with Brian Engblom yesterday. Man, the break couldn't have come at a worse time for them. And, we say that, but also you look at it, maybe that's the reason why they were playing with that kind of urgency, and especially the guys that aren't going to play after, with Kucherov and Vazzy and those guys taking some time off. Maybe they kind of just left it all out there. That's why they played that way. Regardless, we'll take it. Because the Bolts down the stretch there before the break for the Four Nations were playing some of their best hockey all year long. A win is a win. Keep munching points regardless of where the regular season is at. Our guy, Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com, joins us at 1 o'clock. Again, don't forget, especially as we get closer to the playoffs and especially when we get into the postseason, you really want to make sure that you're subscribed to lightninginsider.com. Guys, it's not a lot of money, but every little bit helps, right? When you get guys like myself, guys like Eric, right? When you go into a different endeavor, and for such a long time, Eric was with the Tampa Tribune. When you go and you do your own thing, lightninginsider.com, right? You're betting on yourself. You're betting on you, and the work that you have done and are doing and continue to do will be enough to keep food on the table, keep a roof over your head. And I can't stress to you guys enough how important every single subscription is for Eric at lightninginsider.com. We want more, so we want to support as much local as we can. That's why when I have my friends from the Tampa Bay time zone, right? It's got to be something that we put a precedence on, something that's prioritized here. If you are a fan of sports in the Bay Area, support our people, man. Support Pewter Report. Support Joe Bucks fans. Support lightninginsider.com. Support all of our guys here locally. Myself, every little bit helps. So if you know a Lightning fan, right, and you want to make sure that they have content from the guy that's been covering the longest, Erik Erlendsson is your guy. lightninginsider.com. Go there. And if you use the promo code JNZ, you get $10 off, not just this year, but every recurring season after that. You can't beat that. Buy it as a gift for somebody, right? Because I know when Eric gets a subscription, like he tells me, and he's super excited about that. And he's been such a good friend and a mentor and a colleague for years now, 10 years. He's always been so good to me. He joins us on the show every Wednesday, right? He always come on the show when I was on air at DAE as well. So please, guys, gals, even if it's just one person that you know, just let them know. lightninginsider.com. Help our guy out. Because the last thing we want to do, and we see this, unfortunately, in this industry, where guys, they put forth this effort, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I got to go get another job. I got to go do something. I got to find a way to keep food on the table. And I'm not saying that's where Erik's at, but we just don't want to ever get to that point of the conversation. So lightninginsider.com, please, if you haven't signed up, have somebody. I mean, it's the least you can do, man. It's the least. I'm not begging. I'm asking, please help our guy out, because I love Erik Erlendsson. He's such a great dude. And then at 1:30 today, Chenzo Scanio, and I know that may be a name that's familiar to a lot of people here in the Tampa Bay area. Chenzo pitched at Tampa Catholic. He's a Tampa guy through and through, a huge Buccaneer fan. His dad, Vince. Like, this is a Tampa family. They've been here forever. He's the new head coach at Steinbrenner. And last night, they picked up their first win. He's going to join us at 1:30 today to talk about that. Only the second coach in school history after the absolute legend, John Crumley, left and retired after last season. So they started off their year on a high note. Chenzo's going to join us to talk about his travels this year, traveling to go see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He just got married. And then, of course, some Steinbrenner baseball. Jeff Taylor, go Noles, homegrown talent. I love it. And you know it. You know that we are going to support our team here in the Tampa Bay area. David Terry, name for your followers should be the Faithful Fanatics or Double F. I don't know. Maybe it's got to be something with my name. Erik provides the best coverage. He has taught me so much about the game of hockey. There is the ringing endorsement that we need. Thank you, Stephanie. Erik Erlendsson. Follow him on Twitter, Erik_Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C. 2 S's after the D. I made that up years ago. lightninginsider.com. Sign up for them today. A couple other things. I wanted to shout out, make sure if you guys get a chance, I didn't watch the whole thing, our guys from the Loose Cannons. They do such a great job over there. Stank and Sammer and Poppy Latte. Go check out those guys. They had an incredible interview last night with the one and only Mike Evans. It was, I was just bits and pieces because obviously I was at the game last night. But wow, to have the first ballot Hall of Famer join you on the program, it looked fantastic. The 4-shot that they had. So go check them out. Go comment that I sent you guys over there because, of course, I was showing those guys some love. But that's the kind of thing that is so important. Supporting local, making sure that there's enough people here in the Tampa Bay area that are covering our teams, that are supporting our teams. That's why you see behind me, I'll be at a Sun game. I'll be at the Rowdies, the first ever USF women's lacrosse game. Go out and watch women's lacrosse. I got to be honest with you. I don't know all the rules. It's hard to follow along. And I've gone online. I've tried to research the game. I've actually watched some videos online to kind of get an idea in case I do have to broadcast some of their games in the future. But just going to the contest the other night, the first ever lacrosse match in history for USF. It's fast paced. There's a lot of scoring. There's a lot of energy. And I don't know if that was just because it was the first game, but it is enticing me to go back to another one and to bring the family. So Coach Mindy McCord, and they won again yesterday against Mercer. So they're 2-0 now, undefeated, right? Coach Mindy McCord, who is just salt of the earth, one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. She actually went on Twitter /X yesterday, and she said, and she put an entire detailed thread of tweets out of what happened in the game yesterday. When do you see that from any coach, Division I? But she went through everything. She understands her position in kind of helping grow the game in the Tampa Bay area. So if you're not familiar with lacrosse, if you've never been to a game, if you don't necessarily know the rules, don't let that stop you. Use this as an opportunity because the gates are open. They're welcoming in a new fan base. And even if you're not educated when it comes to the sport, don't let that push you away. Go there, support, learn more about the game. And I promise you, it'll be worth every single penny because the action is fast and furious. These girls are whacking each other with the stick. Like, it is not for the faint of heart. You have to be tough. It is a lot of good stuff. Great stuff ahead for our Tampa Bay Rays. And of course, we'll break it down with our guy, Neil Solondz from Raise Radio. Hello, Neil. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you, Jay? Thanks for having me on.
I'm so honored. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited for baseball season. Such a unique year ahead. I was actually at a Tampa Catholic baseball game last night, and I was with one of the Rays employees that is going to be working on switching the stadium over after the last spring training game before the first regular season game. And she said, I don't know how much sleep I'm going to get over those couple of days. Neil, this is you, such a baseball lifer. You love the game so much. This is one of the most unique seasons, I think, regardless of the team in baseball history.
It's different. It's obviously unique for a lot of reasons. And, for all of your viewers and listeners, I just hope, everyone who's been affected by both Milton and Helene are recovering okay. As I know, some of our employees are still recovering from the damage that was done. And obviously, as an organization, we still are. It's going to be a unique season, but I'm excited for it. I would think if there's any organization that's well equipped to handle adversity, it's probably this group. So let's go.
Isn't that like it's just kind of the standard race thing, right? Like the other teams, they would get thrown off. There's almost something there's an embrace the chaos type of thing with this Rays organization, isn't there? Or they just like, hey, things may not go our way. I just remember a couple years ago when I think who was every starter went down with injury except one. It was just like, all right, well, we'll just run the opener out a bunch of times. If there's a team that embraces the chaos, nobody does it better, probably in all of professional sports, than the Rays.
Well, I think it speaks to how things are built at the top, the ability to kind of be calm within difficult situations. And Eric Neander and Kevin Cash are as good as they come in terms of heading up baseball operations and heading up managing a ball club and heading up a coaching staff. And there are really good people around. But, I also think the players are talented and have come in quite motivated. Remember, this is also a group that had been to the playoffs 5 years in a row. And last year was the first time since then they hadn't been. So I think they're motivated for that reason. And there are probably a lot of people who are discounting or knocking the Rays and saying, well, with all they have to deal with, how are they going to be able to overcome this? And I think it can become very galvanizing and motivating. And I'm hoping it is for this group.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think one of the biggest names, Neil, when you look at this, and of course, we'll get to the pitching in a second, but there's a buzz about Junior Caminero. I mean, he's taking a picture with LeBron James, right? He was just absolutely incredible. We were watching the game, like how much winter ball are we really watching in the Tampa Bay area if there's no Rays players? And this guy's hitting nukes to center field, winning the MVP. I think he's just like the guy that I have circled. What do you think the ceiling is? What kind of year do you think that Junior Caminero could have in 2025?
I don't want to put too much pressure on a 21-year-old kid. I think that's the one thing we have to remember in all this, that he's still extremely young. And while Albert Pujols has already touted him as a potential Hall of Famer, and he hit 450 in winter ball, and he did great things, and he's extremely motivated too.
Right.
What I love about Junior is watching him in the quarter of a season he was with the Rays last year, how hard he worked every day. He and Brady Williams before every game came up with a routine. And then the Rays talked with him about how he wanted to improve his body in the offseason. And he's done the work. His weight may not be different, but it's distributed a lot differently. And he's running a lot better. So he's a physically better athlete. And of all the questions that he was asked when he walked into camp, by the way, the day the pitchers and catchers reported, he was already there. He said what he wants is a ring. And that speaks to what motivates him. So I'm excited. What are fair expectations for him? I don't know. I mean, I can tell you if he was an 800 OPS, 25 homers, 80 plus RBIs, and solid defense at third, I'd be pleased. He might not be. He probably has a much higher bar than that. But for a 21-year-old, knowing how hard the game is, I think we have to be excited, but also temper the expectations a little bit. The team is not going to be, it's got to be more than Junior Caminero. And I think there are a lot of guys who have a chance to get better or be better than they were a year ago.
I love what you said about his preparation and his routine, because the two guys that stand out to me when it comes to routine in the last decade are Evan Longoria Remember how many ground balls, Neil? It was routine, down on his knees, there at third, working with Coach Foley. And then Willie Adames. I remember standing there with Willie, and he's there with Rodney Linares. And I go, do you do this drill a lot? And he goes, Jay, I do this and this and this. And I go, oh, I did some of that with my kids when I coached tonight. So it made me feel better. But it was just that type of thing. And when you look at Junior, was there anything that surprised you about his game? Because I know one scout told me, like, yeah, I think he's got Adrian Beltre potential. And I go, really? Okay. Like, it's just like, that's obviously your Hall of Famer, but a guy that could hit, but also he was such an incredible glove man too. Was there anything about his game when he came up that you looked at and you said, wow, that's better than I thought?
I think probably his defense was better than I thought it was going to be, just from what I had heard. Obviously, I'm not watching games on a everyday basis in Durham, but I also saw how much hard work he put in before the games every day and how it was paying off. And I think for a young player, it's especially important to see, sometimes we're so outcome biased that we focus on that alone. But it does help when you're a young person, no matter what you're doing, whether it's in baseball or any sport or life, to see results. And you put in hard work, you want to see an outcome. And I think it had to be rewarding for him to see an outcome. Obviously, he's going to be a player whose bat is going to carry first, but I think he's going to be a better defender over the course of a year than most people realize.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for that. And I just love he's attack minded in the field, right? You see a lot of guys are attack minded at the plate. Not a lot of guys, if they struggle defensively, are attack minded. And I like that. He embraced it. This is my position. He owned it without being right. Like, he wasn't selfish about it. He wasn't cocky about it. There was just a confidence in such a young man where it's just like it exudes from him. You can't fake that. What about up the middle here? We're getting Jose Siri, obviously no longer here. We know Taylor Walls, and obviously the injury to Ha-Seong. We're going to see him obviously towards like May. Brandon Lau. I mean, I think the strength with this team, you get Danny Jansen in here. Every strong team in Rays history has had that strong spine. Neil, how do you think that spine is going to kind of figure itself out as we get through the season?
I think it's going to be better than it was a year ago. And I'm excited to see how players grow. I mean, first to have Danny Jansen in, a guy who has been through a unique season. Remember that the Blue Jays were a team that had to play in Dunedin and Buffalo, and he was part of that. And, Charlie Montoya was his manager there, a guy very familiar to Rays fans, and couldn't stop raving about what a great individual and teammate he was. And when Eric Neander and Kevin Cash had their opening news conference down in Port Charlotte, they also raved about all the little things they're hearing and seeing about Danny and the way he carries himself. Beyond that, he's a really good player. And I think the key for him, he's had some real freak injuries, some, hit by pitches or foul tips that have gotten him, that have put him behind the eight ball. And hopefully he can stay devoid of that during the course of this year, because he can really add to the Rays offensively. And he actually, has a pretty good understanding of the strike zone. For a catcher, he's a pretty good contact guy. You add at some point this year, Ha-Seong Kim, who has already been a Gold Glove defender, is a really good bat to ball guy, and can give you more athleticism on the bases. I think that can be a huge benefit. And I think the last quarter of the season after the trades, I really thought Johnny DeLuca improved in terms of what he could bring offensively. So, Brandon Lau is a guy who, as long as he's on the field, and I thought the Rays did a much better job of keeping him on the field when he DH'd a little bit more, is going to be a really important piece of the organization and for the offense too, beyond being a really good defender. I think the Rays should be solid up the middle, and I think they will be better offensively. I think they only need, I thought this was brought up yesterday, if the Rays are a league average offense, and they went from the top in 23 to the bottom in 24, if they're right in between that with the pitching staff and defense they have, I really think that they've got a good chance to get back to postseason play.
A guy that it was very interesting. They heaped a lot on him last year, and that's Jose Caballero. Man, what a menace. Just like his attitude and his disposition. He plays a bunch of different spots. How does he fit into this whole thing? Because, you look at last year, he was the starting shortstop, right? And now we know what, with Taylor Walls and Ha-Seong Kim when he comes back. Where does Caballero fit in? Because I feel like on a really good team, on a team that could make a deep postseason run, he might be one of those super U guys that spells these guys in the middle, maybe play a little left field. Do you agree with that sentiment?
He definitely is going to play a role. There's no doubt about it, and an important one. And I thought he got better as the year went on in a lot of areas. I thought his ability to defend and, let's say, make the play in the hole at shortstop got significantly better, and it was because of the work he put in. His base running, I thought in the second half, was much better than the first. His ability to maybe drive the baseball a little bit more improved as the year went on. And I think he wants to continue to get better this year. I think the one thing that stands out, any conversation I had with him last year about what he wants to do, he said, whatever it takes to help the team win. And I think those are when you're talking about guys who are super utility players, guys who are going to maybe not play every day at one position, that's the attitude they need to have.
Right.
And I think he's a really good fit because he has a tenacity. He can get under a team's skin. He's a great guy to have on your team, but maybe not a guy you like to see if you're in the other dugout.
Right.
And he's even willing to learn to play the outfield this year too, if that's going to get him on the field and help this group. So whether it's second, short, third, the outfield, I think he's going to help this team in a lot of ways.
Neil, I think the one guy that is kind of he's so instrumental to kind of where this offense is going to fare is Josh Lowe. I mean, this guy has all the potential in the world. He's, for a big guy, he's such an incredible base stealer. Like, he's just got some insane, uncanny abilities athletically. He's such a great guy, a phenomenal teammate. And when he's going, he's a guy that is just like, he's a metronome. He's consistent. Is he kind of that guy where you look at it and says, all right, well, ideally you would like him to be middle of the pack, but if Josh Lowe can be an all-star, I mean, we could look at a top 10 offense and really do some damage to have that hitting and that offense coincide with pitching and defense.
Similar to Junior, I don't like to put pressure on one guy because I do think that this lineup, especially when Kim's comes back, has a chance to be fairly deep. I mean, you know, you look at the left-right balance that they'll have between Josh Lowe and an improving Jonathan Aranda, and Richie Palacios should really benefit from playing, you know, with the shorter porch in right field. And, you know, then you've got Kim and Jansen that you add to, and I didn't mention Brandon Lau, who's obviously a stalwart in terms of the left side of the plate. And then you add, you know, Yandy Diaz and Caminero and Jansen and Kim from the right side. I think it's a group that can do a lot of really good things offensively. I do think Josh's return to, let's say, 23 form is important. And he basically was beat up from, like, it's almost like one injury happened after another. It was like, first there was a hip, and then there was a hamstring, and then an oblique. And it just seemed like he never got healthy. Whereas 23, he was healthy almost the entire year, and he was a 20-30 guy. And I don't know if he needs to be an all-star, but if he's back to the guy who he was in 23, and Junior takes a really good step forward, and Jonathan Aranda is solid, and the additions are good, and Yandy and Brandon are just Yandy and Brandon, that'll get this group to where they need to be, I think. And we're not even talking about some of the young guys who are prospects who will probably start the year in AAA. But I think they've got probably that's one of the fun things about spring training is the group they have on the come that can allow this group not only to be better this year, but better in years to come is really exciting as well.
Yeah, when could we see Carson Williams? I know that's the one thing with the Rays. It seems like an annual thing. When is this guy coming up? When is this guy coming up? And Carson Williams seems to kind of be that next guy in that line of thinking. We know how dynamic he can be on the bases and at shortstop. And is it a realistic possibility that we see him at some point this year, you think?
I think it's possible. I mean, it depends how he handles the AAA level and how things are going up here. You know, like what kind of bounce back year is it for Ha-Sung Kim? How healthy is Brandon Lau? Because Kim can move around and play multiple positions. I mean, I think he wants to play shortstop, but, you know, there's a possibility that, you know, he could play another spot if need be, if there are injuries, if there are needs. You know, I'm excited to watch Carson because he had a really good year in AA. Obviously, Chandler Simpson did. Trey Morgan was the player of the year. Dom Keegan is probably a guy who gets a little bit underrated. And then beyond that, you've got Xavier Isaac and Braden Taylor, two former first-round picks who are in camp. So there's this like wave of next guys. And the thing that we keep hearing is about Carson and about that entire group, how competitive they were with one another and how much they pushed one another to get better and win. And those are like what you want to see out of your organization and your farm system, is developing that wave of guys who can help you get to where you want to go and hopefully win that one championship. And everything I hear about Carson is, he's a super guy, a terrific teammate, and just getting better every year. This is a guy who was not a baseball player full time when he was growing up. He played all kinds of sports, and then he really committed to baseball in his latter teen years. And now we're seeing him really evolve, being a full commitment to baseball, after being drafted a few years ago. And here he is, he'll be knocking on the door. That's for sure.
Let's talk about this pitching, Neil. I'm so excited. I mean, look at these numbers. It's when you get Shane McClanahan back, and I saw that he shaved his head, like it's just I talked to him before last season. He wanted to play so bad last year. It must have killed him being in the dugout to watch those guys. But talking to him, talking to Ryan Pepio, these guys, there's just an unbreakable bond when it comes to the Rays pitching. And I know it goes back, a while, years. So we going to the James Shields days and how that they were able to pass the baton down to Price, and everybody took such an onus, the Snells and the Archers and everybody were just, there's that tight knit group. I see that with these guys too. Sky's the limit. And when people make lists of best rotations and the Rays don't get put on there, I think they're missing the boat. It's probably for good, Neil, like, all right, hey, the Rays will slide under the radar. But if these guys, and I'm knocking on wood, of course we want them to stay healthy. We're hoping they stay healthy, but man, we could be looking at a hell of a season for that rotation.
I think not only the rotation, Jay, I look at it as a staff as a whole. Mm-hmm. Like for me, it's just a very deep staff that has the potential to do some really good things. And who knows how the starting rotation will look when we start, because I know the last time we started talking about how good the rotation was, they never pitched to the five that we were talking about, never pitched together because of injuries. But to have a healthy Shane McClanahan and a healthy Drew Rasmussen, I think people forget how good Drew was when healthy. And the fact that the Rays extended him, I thought was wonderful, obviously for the Rays and also for him and his family. To add those two guys, to Pepio, to Boz, to Bradley, to Littell, and have six guys who you feel can really impact you now. And then I'm excited to watch Joe Boyle, who they got from the Jeffrey Springs trade, who people are saying has, big frame. We saw what they did with Tyler Glass now, plus stuff. And then two other guys they added to the 40-man in Joe Rock and Ian Seymour that are left-handed and they're high on, that can, pitch bulk or starter type innings during the course of the year. It gives them some really good depth. But I think the bullpen's pretty darn good too. If you look at what they did the end of last year, the way Edwin Uceda grew, the way Manny Rodriguez came on, Mason Montgomery, Hunter Biggie, Kevin Kelly, to go along with guys like Pete Fairbanks and Garrett Clevenger. And then they got Alex Faedo, who, as a local guy, I'm really excited to see how much that helps him. It can be a real big benefit being around his wife and his kids and a really supportive group and playing in his backyard, so to speak. I mean, there are some other guys that we're going to find out about in camp. We didn't know about Edwin Uceda in spring training last year until we got to know him and meet him. And by the latter part of the year, we're like, boy, this guy's, why wasn't anyone talking about him that much in spring training? And I'm sure there are guys who, as I get to know them in camp, will be saying the same thing about in a few months. Yeah,
Edwin Uceda, I think I saw something on MLB Network in the second half of the season going, is this guy the best reliever in baseball? Like, it was just one of those things where it just kind of, hey, the Rays may not make the postseason, but this guy's doing awesome over here. He's just, what an incredible story. Every single year the Rays seem to find that. There should be an award. If you had to name that award after somebody, the reliever that came out of nowhere award for the Rays, who would we name it after?
I'm trying to think of who the first one that, really popped. That, I mean, I think they've had some of them have been like injury reclamation projects.
Right.
Like I look back at like Joaquin Benoit and Fernando Rodney and guys who had incredible years after looking for a bounce back. But then there also have been guys that fit the Edwin Uceta category, where all of a sudden you're like, wow, I didn't quite know that this kid was that good when the Rays acquired him. So I don't know who I'd name the award after, but you could have 3 or 4 different awards, and it credits the, you talked about pitching and starting pitching and that lineage. I think part of it is the consistency that they've had in terms of coaches and teachers, that they're all good coaches and teachers, and they've had consistency there with Jim Hickey and then Kyle Snyder for, really 2 decades that you've had the same. Those have been you've had 2 pitching coaches. How many franchises can say they've had 2 pitching coaches over 2 decades? And I think that helps in getting a message across, consistency of message to go along with people who are good at what they do and can really simplify the message.
Yeah, organizationally, being able to call these guys up and having them be so good so pply. As soon as Kevin Cash calls down to the bullpen, those guys come in. All of a sudden, 7 appearances in, these guys have given up no runs and 2 hits. They're like, yeah, they're ready in Durham, which is such a great note on how the organization keeps these guys ready. Neil, I want to ask you about kind of just where the Rays, how do you think they stack up with the rest of the AL East? What do you think about some of the moves that the Yankees and the Jays and the Orioles and the Red Sox have made, and where kind of the Rays or you think could slot in?
I think they can surprise some people. Again, if they're a middle of the road, if they at least get to middle of the road offense and their pitching staff is top notch, that generally has been a formula for success. Obviously, a lot of that comes down to health. They need to have a healthy group, I think, on both sides of the baseball, much healthier than they were last year. And if they can accomplish those things, I think it's going to be a fun year. In terms of the rest of the division, the big question mark right now is, where does Alex Bregman go? Like, if he goes to Boston, my view of the Red Sox probably changes a lot. Versus if, let's say, he ends up in Detroit or Chicago, or even, I know that people are discounting him going back to the Astros, but until he closes that door, I'm still not going to believe, probably because of the Pete Alonso situation where, we heard that, it wasn't going to happen, and then he ends up back with the Mets. So in terms of the rest of the division, I think Toronto made some interesting additions. They're in probably the most difficult position of any team, because if they don't get Vladdy signed to an extension before spring training ends, he and Bo are in walk years and they've never won a single playoff game.
Right.
I think, and I don't know how good Max Scherzer will be. They could be a great sign in terms of helping the young guys. If he's not healthy, I'm not sure. They're a hard group to figure for me. I think Baltimore is going to be better in the bullpen because Felix Bautista is back. I think that's probably something that isn't spoken about enough. But they also lost Corbin Burns, and they also lost a 40-homer guy in Anthony Santander. Yeah. That's a lot to replace. I know Tyler O'Neill can help, and I know some of their young players could get better. And Charlie Morton and Sagano, the 2 additions to their starting staff, will help. But having a guy like Burns every 5th day, having a guy like Santander to take a little bit of the pressure off Henderson and Rushman, I'm kind of curious how that goes with those guys not being there. The Yankees, I thought, improved their rotation, improved their bullpen. There's still no Juan Soto, though, and I know Bellinger and Goldschmidt are nice additions, but have they, you still are now going to circle Judge in purple,
right, and
show me somebody else can beat me. And they may do that, but I still think they're they're less, any team without Soto is less difficult to face than when they had him. Right. And then Boston, I think, is a wild card if they get Bregman, because then if, let's say, they're Devers, Story, Bregman, Casas on the infield with Duran and Abreu and
Rafaela.
Yeah, and Rafaela and then a DH of Yoshida. I mean, it's a formidable lineup.
Right.
They added Crochet. I think their pitching staff will probably on paper be better. But again, we're talking about health. Like, Crochet's never pitched more than 130 some innings. And some of their other guys have not. I think what will help them is their rotation is deep enough that Whitlock can move to the bullpen. I think that having a guy who can throw 2 innings, if he's back to his form of a few years ago, makes their bullpen a lot better. And I think that if they were to add Bregman, it probably would give them a little bit of like an edge. Without Bregman, I'm curious as to how they look, because I think they still need like that piece that's going to really drive the engine, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, because he plays with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and he's got that championship pedigree. And interesting to see. I think their defense is probably better with him at third than Devers. Where do do you slide him in the second? Right. That's
Like,
an interesting thing. Where you play Bregman at second.
If he would have to learn a new position, but
Yeah.
if let's say you put him at third and Devers at first, then what do you do with Yoshida if you're going to DH Casas?
Right.
Like, that's a pretty big contract to just because they don't want to play him in the outfield anymore.
No.
And with Rafael and Duran and Abreu and Ref Snyder as their fourth outfielder, they really don't have a need to play him much in the outfield. So they basically would have to punt on that contract, so to speak, which I don't think they want to do at this stage. I mean, it's still year 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, dang, man, that's good. It's interesting. You're right. That one move could just kind of tip the balance there. And I'm with you on the Orioles, Neil. I'm looking at their lineup and I go, okay, a lot of young players, but I feel like we're in the position with Baltimore now that we were with Toronto 3 to 5 years ago. And it was like, hey, look, it's Kevin Biggio, it's Bo Bichette, it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You have all these young stars, but if they never get to that level, then eventually you get to the end of their contract and it's like, did we just waste this youth, right? This movement. And I worry about the Baltimore rotation because they brought in Morton, but they didn't really bring in a number one starter that is going to go in there and pound 200 innings. And you look at MLB.com, you're saying they had Zach Eflin as the ace. And I think that's interesting how that goes. Their bullpen, obviously getting Batista back is good. Cano slides down, but that starting rotation for them, I mean, it's 7 days out of 7. I'm taking the Rays rotation over theirs.
It a lot depends on Grayson Rodriguez.
Right.
Grayson's stuff is number one. If he becomes a 1 and is healthy, it changes the look and feel of their starting staff. But there are a lot of guys who are real solid that they have. Mm-hmm. Kramer's solid, Eflin's solid, Morton's going to be solid. Scanio will probably be solid. But yeah, you're right. But that's how they won a lot of games when they were really good a few years ago. Like now they have Sir Anthony Dominguez and Soto behind Cano and Bautista. There's some thump. They still have a lot of thump in that bullpen, a lot of velocity. So, and I wouldn't sleep on that ball club.
I'm with you, my man. It's going to be a good race, and I cannot wait for the season ahead. One of the most unique seasons in Tampa Bay Rays history. Make sure you follow our guys, Rays Radio, all the great stuff that Neil Solondz, Andy Freed, Chris Adams-Wall, Chris Miller, everybody over there. Neil, thank you so much, man. You always make our show, whatever show I'm on, a whole heck of a lot smarter and better. Can't wait to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. Enjoy spring training, and we'll talk to you again soon. Have a great week.
Sounds good. Great to chat with you.
Thanks, pal. Great stuff, Neil Solondz. There's not many more people plugged in quite like Neil Solondz. I'm excited about the AL East because there's a lot of question marks all over the place. And it just kept staring at. I love when you can look at the depth chart before the season, when you can look at the starting rotation, when you can look at the projected lineups, and we know it's going to change a little bit. But I'm staring at this Baltimore rotation yesterday. I'm going, I'm not buying this, man. I'm not buying the Baltimore Orioles rotation when you're going up against the Yankees rotation, when you're going against the Tampa Bay Rays rotation. It's not the same. It's not the same. They're solid, but solid, not spectacular. And that could be a problem because you want to win, right? That's the thing. You could be solid. You could be a playoff team, but at the end of the day, you would think that you got to win. You got to win a championship. That's the most important thing. So I'm excited. Can't wait. And let's see. Thaw says, Neil has forgotten more baseball than we may ever know. Yeah, I mean, Neil is locked in, and he's just one of those people where he does his homework. And I was surprised he says, I don't watch a lot of Durham Bulls games. I'm like, come on, Neil. if there's anybody out there that watches some Durham Bulls games in their downtime, it is probably the one and only Neil Solondz. All right, let's keep this baseball conversation going. It's a familiar name here in the Tampa Bay area. Let's bring him in. You remember him from his dominance here in Tampa at Jesuit High School, and now rocking Florida State cap on the program. My guy, Wes Mendes. What's going on, brother? How are you?
How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good over here in Tallahassee.
I know we miss you, bro. We miss. You know what's so funny?
Yes, sir.
I had Miguel on Monday. I had Paulie Russo on yesterday, and I went to the TC game last night, and we were up in the press box after the game, and they go, "Yeah, we were throwing this pitch, and Wes Mendes hit a ball that still hasn't hit the ground yet." and then when I got the email that you were coming on, I was like, "Bro, that's so crazy. We were just talking about you last night." Thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate
for sure.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Bro, it was so crazy. So I'm talking to Paulie, and Miguel texts me, and he goes, "Check this out." And we're looking at the starting rotation, and I'm like, yeah, so that guy at Jesuit, so that guy at Jesuit, so that guy at Jesuit, John Abraham's going to be in the mix. I'm like, I don't know if we've ever seen that from a big time, maybe for like a smaller college where you get a lot of the kids from the same area, but it's Florida State. We're talking Noles baseball here, baby. All the guys in the starting rotation, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Jamie, Joey, and Wes. Like, how cool is that to be a part of a rotation filled with Tigers, now Noles?
No, it's really awesome. Jamie, he's been awesome, obviously, Joey and John, and even Noah too. Like, it's really cool. Like five guys from the same high school make it to a program like this. It's unheard of, honestly. So it really is. It's a testament to how good of a job Coach Menendez does, obviously, over there. How good of a baseball place Tampa is in general. Honestly, like it's a pretty big hotspot over there. It's really, really cool. It really helps, like, getting adjusted, honestly, like having those other guys that you know from Tampa and just other guys that you know from baseball in general. Just it helps you get adjusted to the new school quicker. It just helps in every way. It's awesome. It really is cool.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, if you've never been to a game at Jesuit, you just have to go, right? And then when you go to the game, right? Like, I mean, there's games there are better than some minor league complexes that I've been to over the years. And obviously, that Tampa Catholic Jesuit rivalry. I mean, you know that, like, that's got like a life into its own, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's crazy over there. It really is. That place is just it's baseball over there. Like any workout place you go to, there's pros everywhere. Like, it's just a baseball hotspot in Tampa, and that Jesuit TC rivalry. It's awesome. I never lost to TC personally myself.
Wow,
so I mean
that's big.
That was never much of a rivalry when I was there, but maybe we'll get back to that. Hopefully not one day. But
it's funny because years ago, one of the better Jesuit teams, and this was almost like a decade ago, and I think they lost both. They might have won states of the year, but they lost both games at TC. Or I might be wrong, but there's just some of those games you just throw the records out the window, and like you got to bring it because it doesn't matter.
Definitely.
Because there's people that have been that played for Jesuit 30 years ago that are like, if you're going to win 2 games this year, you got to beat Tampa Catholic.
Yeah, no doubt.
Tell me about your transition, Wes, there to Tallahassee and everything, and just your mindset going into this season as you get ready for a big year with the Seminoles.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing's guaranteed. So obviously, you just take it one start at a time, one step at a time. It'll be cool being able to come back to Tampa this next week. Playing at USF. It'll be really cool to come back home, see a lot of the guys. But yeah, for sure. It's a really easy transition here. The coaches, they make it really easy. They're really good at communicating, really good talking to you, relating to one another. Jamie's been a huge help in that part, just because I've been really close to Jamie ever since high school. We're roommates here. So he's been probably the biggest help for me of everyone, just because coming up the year he had last year. And it's just, he's an easy guy to look up to and kind of just follow and kind of like learn from him. You just get bits and pieces of routines that he does, just like the way he thinks into the game and just all kinds of things like that. So it's really been an easy transition. It's really, really awesome over here. I love every second of it. It's nice to be back in Florida after a year hiatus.
I hear you. Well, make sure you tell Jamie I said hello for sure. What do you see from him? Because kind of go into a little bit more about the preparation side, Wes, because you see this as much as I do, mock drafts and all these things, and it's Jamie Arnold this, Jamie Arnold that.
For sure.
But when I watch everything that I see and talk to the people that I talk to, it's like yeah, he's not worried about that kind of stuff. He's just focused on working hard and doing things the right way and the preparation. Speak to that with a guy that you're a roommate with.
Yeah, for sure. It goes to what I said, nothing's ever guaranteed, and he knows that. And he's the last guy that like you would never even know he is what he is from the way that he acts. He's so down to earth, he's humble, he's awesome, and the preparation, like he does like these kind of like workouts or like kind of like activation stuff before like coming up like the week ahead. So like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all that stuff. So I kind of get in the weight room with him like before we go throw or before bullpen or before his start day or something like that. Kind of just like go through like a hip mobility, shoulder mobility, kind of activation stuff like that goes into that. And then even like the recovery aspect of it too, the arm care, the tubs, back and forth hot tubs, just everything. It's awesome just to like see even the mindset stuff too. Like we watch a lot of we did some Brian Cain. We watched some Brian Cain stuff. So it's like a lot of mentality stuff.
Yeah.
Like mindset, stuff like that, taking notes, writing down journals about execution, stuff like that. So yeah, it's really cool over here.
I love that. Did you guys do that? Is that something that was started at Florida State? Did you guys start that at Jesuit? Is that something you guys do in the off season? Like how did that whole mindset and like preparation and also on the backside?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did like Jesuit, we would have like some speakers come in and talk to us at certain times, and we would have like book clubs and stuff like that as captains at Jesuit. So like Miguel he always like kind of implemented that as like in most high schools, you definitely like don't get anywhere near that. So it really is. It is crazy to think about how Miguel started that. And then as you get into college, it kind of just gets next, like you go to the next level. You kind of just go more advanced and kind of like start journaling stuff. Like I never really journaled or anything like read books. Like I read a couple books, but I wouldn't really like dive into like mental books, stuff like that. Like the Mental ABCs of Pitching is a great book that I got that I think has been a huge help, honestly, for me. Just like you go chapter by chapter and it kind of just talks about all the different things of pitching, like execution, mentality, just everything, honestly. So that's been great.
Mentality part about it is so key because even if you give up a hit, you got to be able to snap, release, you got to get back at it. What's kind of the goal for you guys? Like, what is the conversation as we get closer and closer to the regular season now? Do you guys set goals? And maybe not. I don't want to talk individual. I'm talking about the team because we're looking at the Noles and obviously one of the better programs in the country. And you obviously don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves and like, yeah, we're talking about Omaha now. But like, what's kind of the daily focus, the process that you guys think is going to lead you guys to productive results as the year goes on?
Oh yeah, for sure. Obviously, we're always thinking about Omaha. Like I'm in the trophy room right now. We got all the trophies. We only got one missing, and that's the national championship trophy. So Coach talks about that all the time, of course, and that's obviously always on our minds. But it's really just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. You can't really get too far ahead. So it's just we have our weekly plan. So you just got to go through that every day. It's not really about too much like thought really right now. It's just doing, honestly. You just go, you do your preparation, and you're just ready for the game. You don't want to have to think when you get to that point. So, yeah.
Are you going to get a chance to swing it at all?
No, I'm done. I stopped swinging. I stopped swinging last year.
Man, it's so funny.
I know.
Bro,
I miss it.
You hit a ball one time at Jesuit when I went there, and I swear, Wes, I don't know if I've seen a ball disappear and become a little speck into the night. I think you almost hit it to Raymond James Stadium. You hit the thing so darn far. So yeah, but that's kind of the thing, right?
I miss it for sure.
When you get to that level, right? You sometimes have to make and all the preparation. What goes into that decision though? Because I know it's if you had your chance, you probably want to hit, but you understand that sometimes one starts kind of leaning in the direction of like,
for sure.
Hey, this is probably where my future is going to be.
Yeah, I kind of figured that out last year at Ole Miss. I tried it out in the fall. I was two-wing, and I did all right. Like it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible, but I kind of just figured I knew I wasn't probably going to break the lineup that year as a freshman, and I knew I had a pretty good chance. Like I had a chance to be a weekend guy last year, but I got a good amount of innings last year, so I kind of just figured like it's rather than trying to do both, just focus on one and just excel at that, honestly, is what I hope to do. So that was the thought process.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What is your message to not just Noles fans, but your Jesuit friends and all your Tampa people that love you and support you back here in the 813.
No, yeah, I love them too, and I thank everyone for everything they've done to me to get to this point, and for the continuous support and just everything that everyone's been there for me and done everything for me. Miguel, he's been awesome. He's still communicating with me, Jamie, and Joey throughout this whole thing, just giving us congrats, telling us he's watching us, just being there for us all times. And it's great to know that I always have people like that to come back to, no matter what happens.
Yeah, we just saw that. Was it Caden Wechter? I think committed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's coming. He's coming to FSU now too. And my brother's still a Jesuit, so he's friends with a lot of those guys. So I'm pretty close to a lot of those guys still Jesuit.
Well, as you know, Wes, and you could see it right up here, buddy. I got the
Yes,
Jesuit.
sir.
You know, I keep it far away from the TC thing. You know,
yeah, it's good not to put them too close.
You can't, because somehow they would bash into each other.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Wes, I'll actually be there next Tuesday night, so I'll definitely come by and say hello
That's
to you
awesome.
and the guys. I'm so freaking proud of you, man. You are one of those guys, you as well as the other fellas, that represent our area to a T with class and dignity. And even if people aren't Florida State fans, they are Noles fans when you guys are on the mound. So continue the great work. I appreciate your time today. You are crushing it. And yeah, kick some ass, man. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on here. Appreciate it.
Talk soon, Wes. Thanks, buddy.
Yes, sir.
All right, good stuff. Wes Mendes crushing it. I can't wait to be able to see that guy do his thing. And you never know, man. You'll see a bat in his hand again, because I've seen that dude hit some freaking nukes. Oh my God, incredible. So I'm still trying to get. Okay, yeah, let's do 130. Let's do 150. All right, Erlendsson is going to join us at 145-ish. Because he can't do it today. He's at a doctor's appointment. He's getting fitted for new contacts. Timing issue for 10:30. I know you have a 1:30 guess. Any chance to swap? I'm not sure I can make it back in time for 1. So let's do 145. All right. So we got some time here. Yeah. So we'll go from there. Chenzo Scanio will join us at 1:30 as well. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen. Let's talk about anything and everything when it comes to Tampa Bay sports or any sports in general. Wes Mendes, what a great chat with him. He did such a great job. Recher's Bleachers Creatures. Who started that one? JT. Recher's Bleacher Creatures. Yeah, I guess the only problem is I don't want to steal it from the Yankees, because people are going to say it's got to be kind of, original. The Recher Podcast Pendingos is a great, the podcast Pendingos. It's the same, but not the same. How about those Noles? You got that right. Again, follow me on all social media platforms at JRecher. I wanted to play this real quick. This is the quote yesterday from Alex Golish about what we heard or what we saw from Byron Brown. Because this guy, I was concerned, and I know I'm not the only one, but I was concerned that Byron Brown was going to transfer, and we didn't see him. We didn't really hear, all right, what's the deal? I thought his time there was done. Luckily for us, we're going to see him again. And if you missed this, this is from yesterday. This is what Coach Alex Golish had to say about Byron Brown in the 2025 season. Not afraid to put his body on the line. And he really is a guy, and we're not taking anything away from anybody else, but he just seems to be a guy that really executes your offense at a high level.
Yeah, I was excited as anybody going into year 2 for him in the system. We being in the system, and the system has grown, but being in this now and seeing guys go through from year 1 to year 2 and the growth that they've shown traditionally in the understanding, the ability to get the ball to the right people, the ability to get us into the right plays, and the offseason that Byron had was elite last year, both mentally and physically. You see, what his body became. He finally turned 19, and so just the ability for him to continue to grow both physically and mentally, and honestly to be able to grow as a leader. It's so different when year 1 you're in this role. And I think he fully expected to be in it, but he was so worried about making sure he was right that I think a lot around him, things were happening really fast. Where year two, I think we were all really excited. And the start of the season, he would tell you what he wanted. And so for it to end the way it ended, without really knowing when he was going to be able to make it back, I think was really, really hard for him. But he's such a competitor, and he makes others around him compete at such a high level that's when you know somebody's a leader, is when they can make others around them better. It's not just that they know what's going on, it's that you demand greatness around you. And I was so excited to see it, and obviously got cut short. And I think for Byram, there's so much unfinished business, and I think Byram loves this community. Byram loves this university. He loves this football team. Loves the offense, loves the system, loves what's going on here, and I think truly understands the value of being developed in the system. So you talk about people that are super excited that he's back. I'm right here. We're certainly continuing to build around him. And I think it's easier when you're selling to recruits, man, come here and be with him and block for him or catch passes from him or run the ball with him. But at the same time, we spent so much time making sure that we're building for the future and we're building depth behind him. That for him, his next step is to put it all together as a leader, as a football player, certainly as a passer of the football, as a game manager. I think he's beyond excited to get back and be on the field as well.
So you hear that from Coach Alex Golesh, and again, if you missed the interview, I am putting it in the chat right now. You can go put that in and copy and paste that wherever you may like, and you can watch the entire thing. But that just makes you feel good as a Tampa Bay sports fan. We unfortunately deal with some loss. We deal with things that players or coaches leave. But to know that Byram Brown is coming back next year makes you feel so much better about the USF season ahead. I can't wait to see what they can do. And just listen to some of the things that he said. Byron loves the community. He loves the team. He loves the university. He loves this offense. That means a lot to him. And we don't always know what the priorities are for certain athletes. A lot of times it is money driven, and you can't fault them. I don't like when people are out there and they're like, I can't believe that they did that for money. Listen, if you were in a similar situation and you had the ability to make money, that is life-changing money, or if you are able to get an NIL deal to give you more money than you've ever seen in your entire life, who are you to say that that's not the right thing to do? Everybody, people leave their jobs or better paying jobs all the time, even if it's outside of sports. And as long as you're transparent about it, Liam Cohen, and you're just honest with people, Liam Cohen, I think it's all good. So very, very excited to be able to see what he is going to do in this USF offense this year. Of course, we got a long way to go because we have baseball coming up. We have softball already underway. Women's lacrosse with a 2-0 record. I want to get back to, as well as something from yesterday. I want to play this again for you. And that's the other big video from yesterday's show. And that is John Cooper. And a lot of people have always wondered, what is the big deal with him being a lawyer? Like, how does that help him be a coach? And I don't know if we necessarily were thinking about going in that direction, but the great Brian Engblom joined us on the program yesterday. And I wanted to play this for you guys as well. This is what he had to say of how do you take those skills? Because I asked him, being a lawyer, being a guy, and the conversation started with my favorite book, which was 3 Nights in August from Tony La Russa, the Hall of Fame baseball manager, speaking about how you want to either be a great coach is one of 3 things, or a coach is usually one of 3 things: a master psychologist, a riverboat gambler, or a master X's and O's guy. But the great ones are everything. And I think for years, the master psychologist part was John Cooper, because he was such a smart guy. He knew how to motivate people. He can talk. But Brian says here, like, he's also become a really good tactician as well. But it goes back to his lawyer days. This is what's helped him make just hay in the NHL. Here's what he had to say about John Cooper and the help of being a lawyer.
John has quickly developed into the top name in the National Hockey League. End of story. I don't know if you saw that survey the other day. They took 100 or 200 players or whatever, and they said, who would you most like to play for? John Cooper came out. I think he got 39% of the vote, which was, substantially more than the guy in second place. So he has a charisma about him. He has a winning background. He's a very intelligent guy. I mean, you have to have a great memory. To me, one of the biggest attributes, the single biggest attribute of intelligence is memory. If you have a good memory, you become a smart person pretty quick because you can remember what you've read, you can remember where you've been, you can put things together based on what's in the back of your mind and what's happening now. That's really valuable in sports, and especially as a coach. So Coop is an attorney. He passed all those exams. He's argued with judges, I'm not putting an argument there, which cracks me up. And I'll just sideline this for a second. We know how he can be some days, right? When he gets asked a question, you can be always like, are you kidding me, right? Well, I always say, people, when you go talk to John, you have to remember he was an attorney. And if he didn't have a cogent argument or question to the judges, they just slap him down like, you're not, go away, right? So now he's the judge, right? So when you ask him a question, you better have thought it out a little bit and figure out, what you want to say. And, he has the right as a coach, like any coach does, to slap it down if you want. Okay, so having said that, early on in his career, he had to learn the hard way a little bit. He got out-coached a few times by guys who've been around the block, but he remembers, and he's darn good. Like, he knows what he wants to do. And I think he trusts his players for sure. I think he listens to his players. And yes, he's a very good psychologist. So all of those things, you have to have them all. Whatever your biggest strength is, I would agree with you. I think probably the psychology part of it is probably in front of the strategy, but not by much anymore. And so I think that's one of the reasons why he's a great coach.
I mean, to be able to listen to Brian Engblom, the two-time Stanley Cup champion, speak about John Cooper, like, God, there's just not many people in the country that I'd rather talk to than him. But did you hear what he had to say about memory? I love that. I think having a great memory is so important in being successful. And whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a coach, whether you're a teacher, whether you're studying for a test, like having a good memory is something that is vital. And it also bleeds in other aspects of life, like respect and courtesy. Just think about it. You met a guy one time. Think about how crappy it is to feel when you met somebody, you met them one time, and then you go shake your hand like, hey, it's good to see you, or nice to meet you. And they're like, yeah, we met before. Bro, there's just nothing like that feeling. You're like, oh, that sucks. But when somebody remembers you, when somebody, like it happened, Frank Caliendo, the comedian, a couple of months ago, came in studio when I was there, and he goes, I remember you, the Gap guy. Yeah, I remember you. And I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it. But it's the memory. It's the recall. Think about some of the great positions or great players in all of sports. And I think you go back to the quarterback position, having that memory of knowing what you watched on tape, understanding what the defense were trying to throw at you. Some of the best quarterbacks, probably all of the best quarterbacks, have great memories. So I just thought it was a really, really interesting topic for Brian to be able to bring up, which accentuated what is so great about John Cooper. You could say all these different things about him, but that right there, that attention to detail, that recall, that memory is part of the secret sauce. Stephanie wants to know about Coach Golish. Has he had a recruiting class that is only his yet? He hasn't been here long enough as of yet. No, because this is only year 3 for USF. And you think about, he understands that it is a results business, but he's so focused on the process. I think we got a big year ahead when it comes to the USF Bulls. I really do. Get Byron back. I mean, you look at the competition, some of these teams that they're going to play. It's not going to be easy. They play Boise State this year. I don't think the schedule has come out yet. No. But we do know the opponents. So that's, something you got to be cognizant of. Let me see 2025 USF football schedule. Just so we know who they're going to play. Let me see here. All right, so we know they're going to play Boise State. We know that they're going to play Florida. They're going to play Miami. They're going to play South Carolina State. They're going to play Memphis. They're going to play Navy, North Texas, UAB, Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, Rice, and UTSA. We do know some of the dates, and I don't know if these are locked and set in stone yet, but they're on the road. Just think about these first 3 games of the season for the Bulls, and we'll hopefully talk to Alex Golish about this as we get closer to the season. They'll have their spring game in April 26th. Then these first 3 games, it's going to be a tough putt. 3 straight top 25 games for the Bulls. At home against number 24 Boise State, and again, the rankings are going to change. And then travel to Gainesville to take on the Gators September 6th. Then you travel down to Hard Rock Stadium to take on the Miami Hurricanes. That is rough. And then home to South Carolina State. That should be an easy win. And then travel to Memphis to take on the Tigers. Travel to Annapolis to take on Navy. Wow. That is not going to be an easy start to the season. The first 5 of the 6 games for the USF Bulls. Whoa. That is... You got to keep an eye out for that. You got to manage your expectations there, right? I thought that they played really well last year against Alabama leading up until the end. If they hit on some of those passes, we could be having a different conversation today. But that schedule is brutal. 5 of the first 6 games. Again, I'll say it again. Boise State, Florida, Miami, South Carolina State, Memphis, and Navy. On the road for those last 4 big hitters of those 5 of those 6. My goodness. That is why Alex Golish is looking at this like we have to prepare in a way. We are going to smoke these guys. Yeah, no, thank you, Steve, our guy Steve Versnick. The conference games on the list are all TBA. Not in order. The first 4 are locked in. Appreciate you. Yeah, those are TBA. And I was just listing those. I know those first 4 are locked in. Okay, so Memphis and Navy may not come right after that, which is a positive sign. So thank you, Steve. I love you. But if they are, my good, regardless, the first 4 that are locked in, you're playing Boise State, Florida, and Miami. Holy smokes. You want to see what this team is made of? You're not going to have to wait very long. So if Byron Brown is going to step up in year 3 of this Alex Golish offense, if they win those, let's say they win 2 or 3 of those games, they'll make a big impression on the college football landscape. That's a step up. It really is. Thor wants to know, what do you think about the 4 Nations face-off tonight? I look at these games, 8 o'clock tonight. This matchup, you're going to be able to watch it on TNT, True TV. Canada's favored in this one. Not a surprise there. John Cooper named Jordan Binnington as the goalie for the Canadians, and this was really the only choice, I think, out of the 3 goalies there. Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeault, not a chance where those guys can start this game. You got Binnington, the longtime netminder of the St. Louis Blues. He's got a Stanley Cup on his resume. That's really the only way you go. When you look at this roster for the Canadians and you look at their top lines, it's tough to think that anybody out there is going to have a better forward group than them. With McKinnon, with McDavid, with Crosby, there's just so much talent up front. And then, it's not just the scoring prowess that they have. It's also the grinders up front. When you look at a Sam Bennett and an Anthony Cirelli and a Brandon Hagel, there's just so many good players. And Braden Point's going to be relegated to probably a third line role here. It's all about balance. It's not about just the players. You got to be able to put a good team together. And you look at the lines. How are the lines going to be defensively? And I think that's where, when you're looking at the Canadians, where they could have some issues. Defensively, when you look at the U.S. side, I feel a lot better about them than I do for Team Canada. So this isn't the same team from years ago when you looked at, it was Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook, and it was Drew Doughty and Mark-Edward Vlasic, and you looked at the 3 goalies. They're going to be tested early and often. Are you going to be able to defend? Offensively, if it's a shootout, that may work in their favor. But if you are in a tight game, are you going to be able to make sure that you play strong in your own end and come out on top? You're going up against a Swedish team that obviously is anchored by Victor Hedman at the blue line. But up front, Mika Zibanejad, who has had a very, very tough season for the New York Rangers. He's actually been moved to wing now that JT Miller was brought in via trade. He goes back to the middle and back on the first line. How do you break up the offensive prowess with him and Philip Forsberg and Willie Nylander? Those guys are going to have to carry the water for the Swedes. That is going to be a very, very tough matchup. And if I am Sweden, my big thing is to kind of weather the storm early on. That building is going to be rocking. Canada wants this. Bell Center tonight in Montreal is going to be freaking out. They are not happy with how they have performed in international competition recently. Didn't win the gold last year in the World Juniors. Didn't win, or 2 years ago. They didn't win this past year in the World Juniors. They didn't even medal. So they are out for redemption. They are out to prove that they are the cream of the crop, the top of the mountain in their national sport. And it starts tonight at 8 o'clock, but they have to defend it. We've heard it from Bobby the Chief Taylor, from anybody that we ever have on the program when it comes to hockey. It's not about how many you score. It is about how many you keep out. That is huge for this team. And if they're going to get into this up and down, all-star game type style, that's not going to bode well for Sweden and Finland and the U.S., where they're so strong defensively. I know a lot of people, right? David Terry, goalie is weak in Canada. That is about it. I still, the D-line, the back line, the defense is something I'm also keeping an eye on as well. Mark Stone, another great two-way forward. I like him. Where does Brandon Hagel fit into the equation? Because again, Brian Engblom brought that up yesterday. Do you get to a point where it's not working? And we're all assuming that offensively, Team Canada is just going to be flying and they're going to crush it. But do we really know? Like, you don't know when you get to these international competitions. You don't know how the lines are going to work out. And you don't know how the chemistry is going to be. Maybe this McDavid and McKinnon combination just doesn't work out. Well, actually, right now, hold on. Let me switch that up here because I got it right now, right in front of me. So as of now, and this is dailyfaceoff.com, you got Connor McDavid in the middle. You got Sam Reinhart on the left side. You got Mitch Marner on the right. So we know Mitch from many, many years with the Toronto Maple Leafs and what he can do, a solid two-way forward. But is he too passive, right? Is he too focused on kind of staying out of these guys' way? We know what Sam Reinhart has brought to the table. We've seen it way too freaking much with the Florida Panthers. That guy can shoot. Big-time goal scorer. But is he going to be able to perform at a high level with a guy like Connor McDavid, who's so puck dominant? McDavid can share the puck, right? But I worry about that when you get these top end guys in tournaments like this for hockey. Do you get to the point where that you're watching a guy too much and you're not getting involved because you don't have much time? This tournament is going to be in and out quickly. So you don't have time to get your feet wet. You have to be able to play with these big time players. And if not, don't be surprised. We see it with the Tampa Bay Lightning if John Cooper puts these lines in a blender. Nathan McKinnon on that second line with Sidney Crosby on the left, Mark Stone on the right. I wouldn't be surprised if Sidney Crosby plays center here because he's a lot more defensively responsible than McKinnon. Mark Stone, one of the best defensive wingers in the game. Then you have Braden Point, Brad Marchand, and Seth Jarvis. The great thing about this roster, when you look at the Canadians, is up front, they have a lot of defensively responsible forwards. And that's why, as much as we talk about the firepower, when you have two-way players like Crosby, Stone, Marchand, Hagel, and Cirelli, this isn't just a team that is built with, all right, we're going to take the top 12 goal scorers and we're going to put them on Team Canada. Now, defensively, which helps is that you have Devon Taves, who plays with Cale Makar in Colorado. No problem there. Josh Morrissey, one of the underrated defensemen in all of the NHL up there in Winnipeg. Colton Parayko, big right-handed defenseman from the Blues. And then you have Shea Theodore of the Golden Knights and Drew Doughty playing on a third pairing. And we know Drew Doughty, offensively magnificent. But defensively, I don't know if that's ever been his strong suit, right? That's something to certainly be cognizant of. Let's get to the Swedish lineup for tonight. And again, it's going to change because right here I actually have a little bit of a different lineup. This is last updated today at 12:15 from Pluto Shinzawa from Wednesday's morning skate. All right, so this is from today. So we thought Mika Zibanejad was going to be on the first line center. That's what it was yesterday. Don't kill the messenger. He's back on the second line center. First line center, Elias Pettersson from the Vancouver Canucks. Now that he's got that JT Miller thing in the rear view, he's not worried about that anymore. JT's not the easiest guy to get along with. I know that from first-hand accounts of people. But Elias Pettersson, kind of that weight off of his shoulders, and now can he contribute on the big stage for his country? He'll be in the middle. Philip Forsberg of the National Predators on the left. Adrian Kempe, star winger for the Los Angeles Kings. I like that line right there. Mika Zibanejad slides down to the second line with Rickard Rakell on the left and William Nylander of the Maple Leafs on the right. Joel Eriksson Ek, another underrated player. You don't appreciate how good that guy is until you watch the Minnesota Wild play. He's big, he's strong, he's tough, he's physical. That's your prototypical third line center. Lucas Raymond, the young star of the Detroit Red Wings. We just saw him on Saturday. That dude can fly. And then Jesper Bratt from the New Jersey Devils. That rounds out that line. And then fourth line, Elias Lindholm. You got Gustav Nyquist on the right, the veteran. And then Victor Arvidsson, again, another veteran. That's a solid checking line. Defensively, Victor Hedman and Jonas Brodin. You got Matthias Ekholm from the Edmonton Oilers and Erik Karlsson from the Pens. And then Gustav Forsling. Think about how good this defense is when you have Gustav Forsling, really is one of the best defensemen in the game for the Florida Panthers, and Rasmus Dahlin from the Buffalo Sabres. That team's not great, but he is clearly one of, if not their best player aside from Tage Thompson. So this is a really, really good matchup. And I know our guy Phil Esposito is not happy that that Russia and the Czechs are not involved. But what we do have here is an incredible array of talent at the Bell Center in Montreal starting tonight in this game at 8:00. So you heard my opinion on the lines, on the defense. I think Canada does win this game. I think it's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough sledding because of the opponent, because of how honest game Sweden's going to play. They're not going to cheat the game, right? It may not be as aesthetically pleasing, but does a guy like William Nylander pop off? Because you see that with Toronto. He'll leave the zone a little bit early, gets a couple of breakaways. That's bit the Lightning in the butt a couple of times. So keep an eye on that when it comes to tonight. Stephanie says that's Canada's last hope for a trophy. Can all have all that talent, but no chemistry. Thoughts as Mitch Marner is John Cooper's buddy. Ren Dax, it's about coaching a team of all-stars versus a roster that has set roles as a team. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I feel like we need to be smart when we're looking at Team Canada. And we can't just look at what they've done in the past and what other teams have done. When you look at what they did for the roster for the World Juniors, they left off some big-time players. And I think they outthought themselves. But for this team, I don't think they did that. And let's not forget, if you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, you like how Julian Brisebois and John Cooper do their business, don't you? I do. That is what they did building this roster. Because if that's not the case, Brandon Hagel's not on this team, Connor Bedard is. Travis Konechny's not on this team, Connor Bedard is. You built out that bottom six with some guys that are going to be okay with, like, all right, you're going to be a matchup line. And you have a coach that is not stubborn to the point where that he goes, these are my lines. I'm just going to set it and forget it, like the old rotisserie barbecue back in the day. Set it and forget it. This is Ron Popeil for Ronco. He is going to look at this team, and if John Cooper, after a couple of shifts, and it doesn't mean he's panicking, but if he's looking at this team and he goes, this is not working, you don't have time to sit there and just let it work out on this. You got to get in there. You got to get in there, and you got to mix up the ingredients a little bit. He has no issues, no qualms with doing that. I love it. I can't wait for the tournament again. Starts at 8:00 tonight. Tomorrow, we will break down the U.S. rosters as well as the Finn rosters. And shout out to Fluto. Does a great job for NHL.com to get those lines from Morning Skate. The lines that I was giving you before I looked it up online were the lines yesterday. So I said, oh, man, that's interesting. Mika Zibanejad on the first line. Now on the second line. But I think it makes a lot of sense for him. Nylander takes some of the pressure off there. Let's get to some of the other big stories around the country, and that's Travis Kelce announcing that he's going to take some time, then decide on his playing future. And we love to, try to speculate right after the season is done whether a guy's going to retire or not. We did that here locally with Levante David. I'm guilty of that as anybody. But Travis Kelce said on his New Heights podcast, I know everybody wants to know whether I'm playing next year. Right now, I'm just kicking everything down the road. I'm kicking every can I can down the road. I'm not making any crazy decisions. If you asked me, do you think Travis Kelce is going to retire after this year? My answer would be no. What do you guys think? Do you think Travis Kelce is going to retire after what you just saw in the Super Bowl where they got smoked by the Philadelphia Eagles? I don't see him going out like that. I really don't. I have a tough time thinking that this guy, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, he's 35 years old. I get it. He's no spring chicken. But let's not forget, he had 97 catches this year. 823 yards. Yeah, it's top 40 in the league, but not great. Only 3 touchdowns. He did have that big game against Houston. 7 catches for $117 and a touchdown. And Andy Reid and this team, they know how to utilize him. In certain games, a bunch of targets. And you saw it in the middle of the season where they needed to kind of stay ahead of the Joneses there and to continue to go with it. Raiders, 10 catches on 12 targets for 90 yards. In the game against the Buccaneers, where they won in overtime, 14 catches on 16 targets for 100 yards. The next week against Denver, a tough 16-14 win, 8 catches on 12 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. So in the middle of the season there, when all the teams in sports, well, at the top of the NFL, when they were all like, all right, that it's so, when you get to week 9, when you get to week 10, you see all of these teams, and there's a couple that are 7-3, guys that are 8-2, 9-1, maybe some teams 10-0. Those games are so important because if you can pull away there and get that lead and get 2 or 3 games behind you, that next couple of games, when you look at the targets over the last couple of games, 6, 8, 7, and then 11 in the last game against Pittsburgh, knowing that they had the following week off, that is a goal for a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. He's still targeting them 133 times. He can still go. And he's going to be playing for a head coach in Andy Reid and playing with a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, where he doesn't have to practice every day. He doesn't have to practice every week. I just don't see him going out knowing what the situation is going to be in front of him. I could see him saying, this is my last one coming up. But just watching that game, that's got to leave a sour taste in your mouth. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to lose like that, to get your heads bashed in. When you look at your tape, there's people online saying that and I know you can't worry about that stuff all the time, but when you look at some people perceive to be bad effort. And I know it was on the one play where Mahomes was scrambling around and there was a flag and everybody knew there was a flag, and Travis looked at it and he goes, it's a flag. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see my star tight end just kind of like standing there while my quarterback is running around for his life. At the very least, go over and try to block for the guy, help him out. Don't just freaking stand there and go, I'm just going to stand here because I just saw a flag, so this play's not going to count. Like, come on, dude. That's a business decision, whether you want to admit it or not. It doesn't take away from your credentials, doesn't take away from the efforts that you've given during your tenure in the National Football League, but that's not good enough. I didn't like his disposition in the last 2 games. I didn't like it against the Bills. I didn't like it against the Eagles. Just walking around kind of moping on the sideline. Like, this is a guy, let's not forget, this guy was trying to freaking run over Andy Reid in years past, right? It's one thing to be calm, but it's another thing to kind of look a little disinterested. And then when you go out on the field, your play is a reflection of that. That's why I don't like all this stuff about Todd Bowles. They're like, oh, he's too quiet. He's too calm on the sideline. Well, if the Buccaneers went out there and they didn't play with any energy and any passion, then I'd say, okay, maybe they are a reflection of their coach. But regardless of what you say about the Bucs and why they don't execute, I mean, you look at the effort of a guy like Baker Mayfield, that is the direct reflection of your head coach. Look at this guy. Look at Mike Evans. Look at Todd Bowles and everybody surrounding that team to get him that 1,000 yards. You're telling me that's not a passionate team? Come on now. Just because somebody's a little bit more subdued doesn't mean they're not passionate. Doesn't mean they're not emotional. Some people, I am not one of them, can have that kind of emotion and kind of that gusto and still be able to hold it inside. That may be few and far between, but let's not forget the common thread, the common theme behind successful people, and especially successful coaches, is that even keel. Not get too high, not get too low. We see that with John Cooper. We see that with Kevin Cash. We see that with Todd Bowles. You guys just have to give him some respect. All right, let's bring him in. Fresh off of his first ever win there for Steinbrenner Baseball. He's a Tampa lifer and a huge Buccaneer fan, the one and only Chenzo Scanio. I hope your mom and dad and your sister and everybody are watching. If you are, hi to the people that we love the most. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Jay?
I'm so happy for you, man. I'm really, really happy that you were able to find a home at a place like Steinbrenner. What was that like last night to be on the field, to have your own gig? You know, you're not assistant coaching with dad anymore. You're not helping out at Hit Factory or helping me out. We coached together a couple times in Hit Factory days. But to have your own thing and to be able to come away with a victory last night, what was that like?
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier this morning. You know, I've coached a lot of games now. We've won a lot of games last 5 years in college and doing the Collegiate Wood Bat League. But last night was a little bit, it was different, right? To have 15, 20 family members, friends in the stands, to be there and kind of be a part of it. Something that's pretty cool. And the big reason of why, you know, we made the move back down to do this. So that part of it was pretty cool.
And you take over for an absolute living legend in John Crumley, a good buddy of mine, and many, many years there at Jesuit, and then the only coach there at Steinbrenner since, you know, I remember when I was coaching Steinbrenner, this is a new school, a year or two into existence. I mean, what does that mean to take over from a guy that has such an incredible legacy in our area?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. It's not a job where you come in and you just start changing everything. It's like, okay, what are we really good at? What has Coach Crumley done well? And then kind of keep going from there. You know, I said this before as well. I think there was only about 4 or 5 jobs that we were really interested in coming home for. And when this one came open, one of the first things I did was call Coach Crumley and get his input on it. And then, you know, we're here today and it's turned out pretty well. But yeah, it's been pretty special to take over for a guy like that.
And Donna Carter, AC's mom, she's watching. Hi, Chenzo, from a former Wellswood mom. And, you know, I was at TC last night hanging out with the Russo boys and watching them. And just talk about you know, as well as anybody, what baseball means to this area and especially high school baseball. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, like you said, the draw of going back to Steinbrenner is big. But just talk about Tampa and how baseball is kind of the heartbeat of this area.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Like just kind of what I was talking about, you know, the last 5 years coaching in college, and that was pretty cool. I don't know if I got one text after a win, and we won a lot of games, but, you know, I woke up this morning, I had like 30 unanswered text messages. So it's like we're talking about high school baseball. So it's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of eyes, and it's cool that people pay attention to it, and, you know, the quality of baseball is really good.
And you're a married man now, buddy. The wedding was pretty badass. How's there? Look at you, man. I mean, just talk about how much you've grown as an individual since, you know, being there and now being back here in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool. You know, I say this all the time, but, you know, without Sierra, honestly, none of this would be possible, man. We've done this all together. Really, you know, when both of us were done with school, she moved up to North Carolina when I took my first volunteer job up there. And she's been with us every step of the way. She was a big part of the process of, you know, if we want to go home or do we want to stay up there? What are we, you know, looking to do? You know, she built a life up there as well. So it wasn't, you know, you would think you come home like, hey, Sierra, what do you want to do? You want to go home? It was really easy. It really wasn't because, you know, we built a life up there. We were really happy up there. And like I said, we were really only looking for the right opportunity. And that was here at Steinbrenner.
Behind every great baseball coach is a wife standing
no doubt about it,
shaking her finger, letting you know that you kept that guy in one batter too long. That's we got to make a shirt for that. Yeah. That's actually a good one.
My old boss used to call her coach. She was the third coach on the staff. He let us know after every game.
talk about your family and your dad, because I know how involved he is, and your mom. I mean, I remember back into the Tampa Makos days all the way back then, but just to have a guy like your pops and your mom's support over the years, like what that means to you, and just to have them, just to be back in the same community as them.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's awesome. My dad's on staff with us, helping us out with the pitchers, which is really cool. So when we get to have him out, benefits of me. It's really cool to be on the same field with him again. But yeah, with him and my mom, I don't know if there was a whole lot of weekend series they missed, me playing or coaching the last few years. So I guess they just have to come up the veterans now. They don't have to jump on a plane.
That is great. And the field, you guys can see, if you've ever driven up north on the veterans and you've seen that baseball field to your right, that is Steinbrenner High School. So if you want to be able to go out to a game, go check them out and check out what the Warriors are all about. So tell us about the team, Chenzo. Tell us about the game last night. What was the key? What was key to your victory last night? And who are some of the players we need to keep an eye on moving forward this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at it, we have some guys that have played a lot of baseball, last year and before, with Kelton Mears, Nick Osborne, Noah Fowler, Kason Bell, Austin List. They played a lot of baseball for us, and they're going to continue to be a big part of what we do. But we have some newcomers now, some young guys. With Gavin Mix playing shortstop as a sophomore. Wow. Will Hoblitzel playing the outfield as a sophomore. Mason Kumis is a senior, didn't have a ton of opportunities last year, but it's in our starting lineup now as a senior. There's a lot of young guys. Ty Ciccarello behind the plate, junior, kind of getting his first look. So it's about half of our lineup, has played some baseball, and half of them haven't. So it's a cool opportunity. But last night, Carson Kruger threw the baseball super well, committed to HCC. I think he threw 3 innings, 9 punch outs, something like that. He threw the ball well. That's kind of what we expect him to do, to go out there and give us a chance to win every week. And he did that.
That's amazing to be able to have your own guys. Where do you think, how long do you think it takes for you to kind of put your own imprint on Steinbrenner? Because you have Coach Crumley, and you don't want to come in and upset the apple cart altogether, right? But I understand that. But you also want to make sure that you make it your own. So what are some of those things that you've done to kind of put your own imprint on it?
Yeah, I think, just my, we're obviously a little different. I'm 27 years old. So just the energy and how we want to go about things is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to play clean baseball and give us a chance to win every night. I think the biggest thing for us as a program is what we can do facility-wise for us to be able to compete at a high level and not take so many off days. As you know, a lot of schools in the county have covered cages and things like that. We don't yet. So from the facility side of it, that's really what we're trying to do in our fundraiser efforts to put us in that kind of situation.
So I'm looking at your schedule right now and looking at some of these teams with these coaches. On the 18th, you play Gaither with Coach Nellie North. You play Dennis Braun. On the 25th at Plant. You're facing Eric Luxus at Sickles. You're taking on, you're going to Jefferson and taking on Spence Nunez, who we've known for many, many years as well. I mean, what is that like to be able to see guys that you either played against or played for? It's pretty incredible, kind of that fraternity of coaches when it comes to Hillsborough County baseball.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. A lot of these guys I've had a relationship with the last few years, just kind of recruiting their players a lot of times. And now it's funny, again, part of those text messages last night were a lot of guys you just mentioned. So I have a lot of respect for all those guys. They all do an unbelievable job. And I'm just kind of excited to be able to compete against those guys all year.
Even Coach Crum, you just called me old. There he is. Coach Crum is here. Hell yeah. If he didn't do it, I did. I love you, you old bastard. We love you. What's kind of the goal, Chenzo, for this year? First season, obviously, like you said, you got a lot of young guys there. As you look for goals for the team, what would you say it is?
Yeah, I think for us, it's just continuing to get better every day and giving us an opportunity come April to be able to play for a state championship, So to me, that's the biggest thing. Kind of continue to get better every game, every day, and then kind of see where we are in April. 6A is loaded. Not even. Obviously our district, Plant, Gaither, Armwood, Tampa Bay Tech. In our region, you got Sickles, and even just in Hillsborough County, Bloomingdale, Durant, Land O'Lakes. And that's just kind of the schools right here. So it's a loaded class. It's exciting. But my goal would be in April, come that time, is put us in position to play for it all.
Yeah, and I look at all the different teams, and I mentioned like the coaches that have been here a while. Like again, like kind of rounding out our conversation here, being able to coach in the Tampa Bay area, right? Like I know how much this means to you as a kid that grew up playing at Wellswood, playing at TC, going to play college ball, and obviously coaching. And to be able to come back here, you mentioned there was only really 4 jobs that you would take, but just to be here in the Bay Area, to coach high school baseball with your dad, I mean, just try to put into words like the opportunity to kind of live out a dream.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been really cool. I think me and Sarah talk about it all the time. Still, we're kind of getting used to being home, and there's always something to do. But as far as the baseball goes in the school, it's been awesome. I know from administration here with Miss Ewell, Mr. Duncan, they've supported me all the way. This is a transition. Not just coaching baseball, but I'm teaching. So some new stuff to that. So it's been unbelievable. I couldn't ask. Really for it to start any better. I've had a lot of support here, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm excited to kind of continue getting going.
What are you teaching?
So I'm in ESC, but I'm in the science department.
Nice. All right. Now, the last question I have for you is every single Steinbrenner team going to have a Chenzo Scanio specialty submarine pitcher out of the bullpen? Because
you got to talk to Dad about. He's been joking about this all the time. It was funny. I saw a guy throwing a bullpen the other day. I was like, "What are we doing?" It was like he was dropping an arm slot. So that is Dad's thing. He would love to have one. So would I. But we don't have one right now. But I hope we do.
As a guy that when I grew up playing in New York City and I had to throw sidearm and submarine or else I would have got tattooed, I always loved watching Chenzo on the mound because, guys, if you're just watching for the first time, Chenzo used to go all the way. I'm talking all the way down there, and he would throw these Frisbees up there, and he'd have these big old D1 recruits that can hit the ball 500 feet, and Chenzo would throw a ball that would just flutter through the air at about 67 miles an hour, and the guy would swing so hard and it would go right into the mitt. And I don't know if I've ever seen high school hitters as mad as when Chenzo would strike them out with a ball that could barely break a pane of glass because he threw it submarine style. It was so freaking great. Chenzo, I'm proud of you. I love you. I'm just so happy. And when I saw last night that you guys won, I was like, I got to get him on the show today. Please send my love to Sierra, Mom, Dad, the entire family. Best of luck. I'll be out at the field soon enough to see you do your thing. Get back to work, my friend, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks, pal.
I appreciate it, man.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. Chenzo Scanio, a Tampa lifer. That's when I talk about Tampa baseball, when I talk about people where it's through their veins, the Scanio family, right there. That's what it's all about. And when you hear, I can't imagine his parents, Vincent and Yvette, like how happy they were when Chenzo decided to come back and be the head coach at Steinbrenner. Because when people brought that to my attention, I was ecstatic. I was so happy because that's the kind of guy that you want to see do well. That's the kind of guy that you want to see take that job. And like, I want that Steinbrenner job to be like the Pittsburgh Steelers, where it's like 3 coaches in 75 years. Like how great would that be? Crumley to Scanio, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. So great things happening to great people. That is what it's all about. So I'm excited for high school baseball this year. Again, Steinbrenner 1-0. Go to Max Preps. Go to 813 Preps. Max Preps, you can go and you can look up all high school baseball. But shout out to my guy, Jared Guthrie, 813preps.com. All of the high school baseball coverage in the Tampa Bay area. You want to see write-ups about that game for Steinbrenner, go to 813preps.com. Following on all social media. We're really going to highlight 813 Preps all week this week. As we have a different high school baseball coach on, we're going to have somebody on tomorrow. I didn't know who I was going to have on yesterday. And then as soon as I saw that, it comes to me. It just comes to me. And I knew that I wanted to have Miguel and Paulie on. And then when I saw that with him, I was like, yeah, this is a perfect fit. Tomorrow, we'll have one more person again. I'm off on Friday. So let's not forget, Ed Encina is going to join us tomorrow as well. We're also going to have David Zimroth on, former assistant coach at USF, at Florida State, at Georgia for college basketball, ahead of the Bulls' big-time matchup tomorrow night against the Memphis Tigers at the Yuengling Center. Get there. I'll be there. Go USFBulls.com. Almost time for Double E is right. David Terry, we'll get to him in a second. We spoke about this to start the show today, and I'm going to say it again here. Lightning Insider JSUBaseball.com. Go sign up today. It is so important to support local. Use that promo code JNZ. Get $10 off, not just this season, but every recurring season. If you're just joining us now, I mentioned this at the top of the show. It is so vital. It is so important to support our local endeavors because of the way that the sports medium is changing, about how less resources are being attributed to the newspaper and in radio. And people go, I can't believe you still support DAE after what happened. It's not their fault. It's not the guys that I've worked with and I, covered all these games with. It's not their issue. Our big thing we have to do is we have to support local in the Tampa Bay area. Tampa Bay Times, lightninginsider.com, Joe Bucks fan, Pewter Report, everything. We have to continue to prop up sports here in the Tampa Bay area because we are a burgeoning city. We're growing. There's more people coming into our community every freaking day, and we have to serve our people. And no better guy to talk about that with than Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. You put it right there. Look, use the promo code JNZ. It's over there. You see it right there. Double E, look at you, man. You look like a new man over there, buddy.
I can see better. I can tell you that.
Have you always wore contacts?
Yeah, since in high school I wore glasses, and then I got my first pair of contacts the week before I got married, and I've worn them ever since. So
wow.
I don't like glasses.
Yeah.
And I don't like 3-hour eye doctor appointments either.
Yeah, so if you guys are wondering why he's joining us now instead of at 1 o'clock, eye doctor appointments, you never know. And I remember because I've wore glasses since I was 9, I think it was, and I got contacts the middle of my sophomore year playing baseball, and I was a guy as a sophomore, like freshman, I was okay on JV, and then a lot of my friends, they went to go play varsity baseball as a sophomore, but I played JV. I couldn't really hit that well. And then I got contacts and I finished the season batting like 490. Yeah. And it was like, all right, I'm playing varsity next year. But it made such a change. It's life changer. It really is. Have you ever thought about getting LASIK?
I've never explored it. And I'm probably too old now to really explore it, because there's a shelf life on contacts. And at some point you can't wear them anymore. And I'm not there yet, fortunately. Look, the technology has changed. When I first got my contacts, like I have an astigmatism. So like one of the first eye appointments I ever went to, they didn't even make contacts for those with astigmatisms.
I remember that.
And now, you used to have yearly contacts and then monthly, and now you have daily. This will be the first time I'm going. They're not daily, but they're weekly.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
I'll be going to the weekly lenses now, a little bit more expensive, but they'll probably be better for me in the long run. So
yeah,
I love my contacts. I hate my glasses.
I hear that, buddy. And you know what I love? The Four Nations, and it starts tonight. I cannot wait. There's certain things where I'm like ambivalent about. I don't really care. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen here. And before you hopped on, I went through the rosters for Team Canada and the rosters for Team Sweden, just how the lines look after Fluto Shinzawa put it after morning skate, because there's a change. Because I was looking at certain things like, oh, this guy's going to play with this guy. But now we're looking at Team Canada and seeing, oh, okay, they're not going with McDavid and McKinnon. They're going with McDavid, Reinhart, and Marner, Crosby, McKinnon, Mark Stone, Marchand, Point, Jarvis, and then that last line really hasn't changed. Hagel, Cirelli, and Konechny. I don't know, E. I think a lot of people are looking at this Canada team and going, yeah, you can't just put all the best players together. But E, there's a lot of good two-way forwards on this team. In a weird way, could Canada possibly be better than people are thinking going into this tournament?
I don't know. Canada is always considered a top-tier team. I think people. I think there's a lot of the skepticism comes from goaltending. Right. Their goaltending is a question mark, and it is. But sometimes if you have a question mark in goal, but everywhere else is top notch. I mean, look, I go back and look at the 2010 Olympics in particular, when Ryan Miller almost stole a gold medal for Team USA.
Right.
Roberto Luongo was not very good in that tournament, but he didn't have to be, because the defense was so good in front of him. He let off rebounds left and right like he was leaving cookie crumbs, but nobody was there to be able to get to them because the defense was so good at protecting the net. They didn't allow the Americans to get inside to be able to take advantage of those. So, that can kind of equalize the goaltending, but I mean, Jesus, you have McDavid, you have McKinnon, you have McCarr. I mean, Braden Point is almost an afterthought on this roster, and he's one of the best scorers in the league. Look, their roster is absolutely loaded. So I don't know if Canada is going to be better than people think, because they always think that they're good. I just think if you're looking at it on paper, the U.S. probably has the best roster 1 through 22, but Canada has the best players, right? And that's saying, you have Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes and Jack Eichel, and you get some really good players on the U.S. as well. Their goaltending is the best. Obviously, it's probably the deepest of any country in the world right now. Even deeper than Russia, if you want to count Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and Sorokin and everybody else.
That's a good one.
Unfortunately, we won't get to see it.
No,
but
wow.
I mean, just think of some of the goalies that the U.S. didn't take, right? Canada is wondering, why do we have these goalies, and the U.S. is wondering, why don't we have these goalies that were left off the roster, right? Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, Canada, I think Canada probably goes in as the favorite, and if you look at some of the odds, they're the betting favorite, and they usually are going into any tournament. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun, especially that Saturday night matchup in Montreal between Canada and the U.S. Of course, we have to get through tonight, Canada, Sweden, and tomorrow, U.S., Finland, before we get to those rivalry games. But I mean, Canada is just, they're so good, with their forward depth and their defensive depth, that I don't know how much of an issue the goaltending is going to come.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the final in 22, where it was like Darcy Kemper. You know what I mean? He gave up that goal to Jan Ruda in Colorado. You're like, come on, man. If the Lightning can just put some pressure on this guy, there's no parallel universe is a Darcy Kemper, Andrei Vasilevsky matchup, a nod to the Colorado side. But you're right. They never put enough pressure on him to where he just had to question himself outside of, that game there. And, I always think back, I don't like usually to do the what if game, but if Braden Point's 100% healthy in that series, man, we saw it. You and I both saw him trying to skate. Yep. It's crazy, especially after just watching with the Kansas City Chiefs. We're unable to do. If Braden Point is healthy, we could have been looking at back-to-back championships. Lighting. Pretty wild. Let's look at the Swedish side. The roster is pretty damn good too, right? I mean, you have Victor Hedman there anchoring the blue line. Any team that has Gustav Forsling on their third D pair, who I think is one of the more underrated defensemen in the world, with Rasmus Dahlin, you can't beat that. Their bottom six, because you have Eriksson Ek and Elias Lindholm. There's guys like Mika Zibanejad and Elias Pettersson. I think it's in a weird way, I have more faith almost in their third and fourth line centers, Eriksson Ek and Lindholm, to do their jobs than Elias Pettersson and Mika Zibanejad, because of obviously more off the ice stuff than on the ice stuff. I think those guys down the middle are going to be key for Swedes.
Yeah, Zibanejad has not had a good year for the Rangers, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody will look at that and say, can he be a top six guy for Sweden? Pettersson's interesting because of all the drama that went on in Vancouver, and, pick sides. Who is it? Is it Miller? Is it Pettersson? And obviously they traded JT Miller, and, they're hoping that, he can kind of find his game. And I've read some stories where he's hoping that this can kind of reset his game as well. Right. But I mean, the strength of Sweden is their defense, right? They're so deep on defense that, you're right. If Forsling's on the third pair and you think of the role and everything he's done for the Florida Panthers, a waiver pickup, by the way, he was a waiver pickup way back in the day. Sweden's probably the dark horse, probably more so than Finland.
Agreed.
Of these teams. They've got their goaltending took a little bit of a hit with Jacob Markstrom not being available, but I mean, Jonas Gustafsson's, he's having a pretty good year for Minnesota. Chief certainly likes Gustafsson every time the Lightning have had to face him in the pipes for Minnesota. So, I mean, again, with Sweden, it's going to come down to, can you get enough goal scoring to match the strength of your defense? And can the power play click? I mean, I think this tournament comes down to a lot of special teams play.
Yeah, Linus Ullmark too. I mean, he's the backup. That's a guy where if he does get an opportunity, right? You just never know what happens here. You make a switch. This is a guy we know when he can get hot, like we saw, with the Bruins where he won the Vezina Trophy. You just never know.
And he's coming back from the injury, right? His game against Tampa last week was his first game back from I think since early December.
Yeah, December
was his
10th.
first game back. So it was a surprise to us. He didn't play the second game of that 2-day set because he was pretty good in that first game against Tampa Bay. So yeah, he's certainly a guy that can step up if they need to as well. I'm not sold on Simon Harrison, but he's number 3. If you have to go to your number 3 goaltender this tournament, you've got problems.
You're not winning anyway. Let's look at the other two because obviously they're going to be playing tomorrow night. But let's look at the Finns too. You got Barkov, no surprise, and these are the lines from yesterday. Lehkonen on the left, you have Mikko Rantanen on the right, now the newest member of the Carolina Hurricanes. His teammate anchoring the second line, Sebastian Aho, with Rupe Hintz and Patrick Laine, who's had a nice little career resurgent there in Montreal. Erik Haula down the middle, the veteran, Teuvo Teravainen, Joel Armia, and then Eetu Luosterainen and Anton Lundell, a couple of Panthers teammates taking on Mikael Granlund. Defensively, they lost a couple of guys, and I think that when you look at, we know where they're at in goal with UC Saros, they're going to win. They're going to win and lose with that guy between the pipes. But defensively, when you got Nico Mikkola as your top guy, Valimaki, Vikanainen, a guy that the Rangers picked up in the Jacob Trouba deal that was just recently added. I think that probably, and they're clearly the worst team of the 4, you would think, but they play a good, honest game, right? Finland is always that country, right, where that you may think, and all of a sudden, like, Finland's the team that's here. Let's not forget they were in the gold medal game in 1980, but that's just kind of how they play, right? Like, it's an honest game, and if you're a team that's trying to cheat, especially in a short tournament like that, you got to watch out.
They will work you to death.
Yep.
That's always been the MO. Anytime you face Finland in an international tournament, they will work you hard. I mean, even look at the World Junior. You think about, Finland beat the U.S. in round robin play, and then they had a lead on the U.S. in the gold medal game. And, the U.S. had to work really hard at that. I think they got a fortunate break on their first goal that kind of led to that comeback. But Finland, all those players, that's how they come up through the system in Finland. They just teach work ethic, and that's what's kind of driven a lot of what they do. Laine is interesting to me because he missed the first half of the season, came back, was on fire, especially on the power play, and now he's in Marty's doghouse up in Montreal, right? He was benched for the third period of a game. I was closely watching his ice time on Sunday when these two teams met. He only played about 11 minutes of ice time. Wasn't a lot of special teams play in that game, but he can be hot or cold. He can be a dynamic goal scorer, or he can quit on your team. So he's kind of like that X factor. If he's on top of his game, he can be a difference because he's probably, other than Barkov, probably the most skilled forward in terms of offense that Finland has. I know Rantanen and Aho and all that, but you look at the way Laine can play the game and the way he shoots the puck.
Yeah.
Now he's Steven Stamkos. He's got a Stamkos-esque shot from that left circle as a righty. So, he can kind of be the X factor for Finland. But clearly that they are the weakest of the 4 teams. But that doesn't mean anything in a short tournament.
Yeah, because you know what? You may have, like, on any given night, UC Saros could be the best goalie in the world, right? Yep. So that's the crazy thing where he can come in and be like, hey, because remember, they drafted Yaroslav Askarov. We were there at that draft in the first round. They thought that guy was going to be the future. And then Saros really just kind of from Pecorine just took it over. And it was just like, he's one of the best goalies in the world. We're just going to have to trade him. And then they traded Askarov away. But yeah, Laine is just he's such an enigma. Because I remember his rookie season there in Winnipeg, and I go, this guy could score 600, 700 goals in the NHL. Like, he's that good. And now Stephanie chiming in, Montreal Press calling him lazy. I just wanted to look up, like, hey, man, maybe he could be a fifth of the Lightning. Yeah, he's making $8.7 million a year. So I don't know if that's necessarily a guy that you want to hitch your wagon to making that much money. And then finally, the United States, looking at these 4 lines, Chris Kreider, a guy that they thought that they were going to bring in to help with the power play. It doesn't even look like he's going to get into these games. He may, but he's not going to start the first one, it looks like. Jack Eichel, Kyle Connor on the left, Matthew Tkachuk on the right, Austin Matthews on line 2 with our guy Jake Gensel and Jack Hughes, JT Miller on the third line with Matt Boldy and Brady Tkachuk, and then the fourth line, you want to talk about this reminds me of the line when they had, I want to say it was like the Canada team that had, I want to say it was like Jonathan Taves. They had like 3 captains, and they were all the third line. This is what this line reminds me of, that fourth line. Trocheck, Brock Nelson, and Dylan Larkin, guys that are top 6 forwards for their teams, but they're just going to be a pain in the ass to play against. And then you have Jacob Slavin, annual Lady Bing Award guy, one of the real good guys in the game.
Very underrated.
I love his game. He just doesn't make mistakes. Like whatever he does, he just doesn't make mistakes. Adam Fox, Werenski, and McAvoy, and then Hannafin and Faber. Brock Faber is such a good player. And then, you have arguably the two best goalies in the tournament, I think, on the same team with Jake Ottinger and Connor Hellebuck, who he is the best goalie in the league this year. Back and forth, we talk about who's the best goalie in the world, Andre Vasilevsky, but I was on air in Winnipeg, I think, last year, and I told them there's a mutual respect across the continent between Tampa fans and Winnipeg fans because we both have arguably the two greatest goalies in the world. But it's Tampa. This U.S. team looks like they're constructed top to bottom to win this tournament.
Yeah, they have the best, like I said, the best 1-22 in this tournament in terms of what they can put on the ice, no matter who it is, and that's without Quinn Hughes, who backed out due to injury. He's such a dynamic player. He's Cale Makar light, and he's in that same category with Cale Makar and what he can do, especially when he's running a power play. We don't get to see the Hughes brothers play together, which would have been pretty cool. They're just so deep. I mean, and Jack Eichel, they're going to kind of use him probably as much as possible as a matchup center because he is so good defensively, but we all know what he can do in the offensive zone as well. There's dynamic play. You think of some of the players who are left off the U.S. roster, right? Like there's no Cole Caulfield, who's one of the top goal scorers in the league. They left off this roster. No Jason Robertson on this roster. There was talk that, it used to always be Canada's B team could put up a fight in a tournament like this. I think the U.S.'s B team could put up a fight in a tournament like this. That's how deep the U.S. has gotten with their development program. So, that's no surprise that they have probably top to bottom the best constructed roster here. That third line, Tkachuk and JT Miller, Brady Tkachuk and JT Miller, they're going to be a pain in the ass to play against, right? We know how hard Brady Tkachuk plays, and both those Tkachuk brothers are pains in the ass to play against, and I mean that in the best possible way.
Of course.
But that again, I'm really looking forward to Saturday's matchup, Canada-US in Montreal. John Cooper getting praise in Montreal and not getting booed should be very interesting.
Well, if they win, if they lose, then
only if they win. That's right.
I like what you said about Jack Eichel because watching them, they played the Rangers a couple of weeks ago, and the Rangers won. But Jack Eichel, he's so tall, and he's got such a long stick that he affects every single play in all three zones. In the neutral zone, the puck can't go by him without him getting a stick on. He's able to just reach out a stick in the defensive zone and break up plays where you think that there's no chance. And then offensively, he's got such a long stick, but he's so great with the puck close to him that he's able to toe drag the puck close to him and be able to shoot the puck. He's got one of the best shots in the league. When people talk about the best players in the league, and now he's got a Stanley Cup. He doesn't get nearly mentioned enough. Everybody talks about McDavid and Matthews, and I get it, right? And you talk about Kaprizov and Draisaitl and Kucherov, and I understand. But Jack Eichel's a Stanley Cup champion. He's got what some of those other guys don't have. And you could argue that out of all of those top guys, he's probably the best defensive one out of all of them, right? So he's definitely the most well-rounded. And this is the Jack Eichel that the Buffalo Sabres thought that they were getting when they drafted him number 2 overall behind Connor McDavid. It's going to be very interesting to see how their careers play out, McDavid and Eichel, because McDavid's going to be the guy. It's almost like the A-Rod Jeter thing where McDavid's going to probably have all the records, but Eichel might be the guy with more championships when it's all said and done. I think they'll both be Hall of Famers when it's all said and done, but who's going to have, the personal success versus the team success? Let's talk a little Lightning hockey. What did you make of the team the last 4 games before the break there? I mean, the record going into that first game against Ottawa, you're like, oh my gosh, 3-9 against the Atlantic Division. Well, then they pull off 4 straight, win a couple of games against the Sens, Detroit on Saturday, and then that final game Sunday in Montreal. I don't think you could have asked for a better end to that first part of the season.
No, it's make or break almost in a lot of ways, right? Especially that 2-game set against Ottawa. I mean, we highlighted that for a reason because of where Ottawa was trending up and the Lightning were trending down. And, that was an 8-point swing. You think about it, 8-point swing between those 2 games. I mean, they could have been 8 points behind the Senators. And instead, they leapfrogged over them with 2 wins. And I thought they played tremendous in both those games on home ice. And, I thought Vasilevsky was great. A couple of saves he had to make at key parts of games, as we've seen him do so many times. And then the 2 games against Detroit and Montreal, I think was just karma.
Yeah.
Because you think of some of the games in January, including the game in Detroit and including the game in Montreal just a couple of weeks earlier, where the Lightning were by far the better team and didn't get a result out of it. They flipped the switch. They flipped the script on this one because they were not the better team in either of those 2 games. I mean, right. Detroit and their relentless pressure, especially in the second period, was just complete domination. And they find a way to get out of that one with a win. And, you could tell in the Montreal game, they were tired. Like, you could tell they were trying to reach the finish line. They were in a marathon and just kind of crawling their way to the end, just gasping for air and looking for some water to get there. And they scored some early goals on. They chased another goalie, second straight day. They chased a goaltender with a couple of early goals and just found a way to hang on. And so that's just karma coming back. John Cooper kept telling us that things even out. That was kind of things evening out with those 2 games. And at the end of the day, they picked up 8 out of a possible 8 points in those 4 division games. And boy, things look a lot better heading in the break right now than they could have been had things gone the other way, or even if they'd have split those 4 games against those teams. Now you're just 2 points behind Toronto. You're 6 points behind Florida with, 2 games in hand on the Panthers. So there's still a lot of runway to go, but boy, did these past 4 games just set them up a lot better than things could have been had they gone the other way.
When you look at that Saturday game for Dylan Duke, it's a day that his family will not ever forget.
Yeah.
Debut, goal. His brother scores that night for Michigan in the same frickin' building. His friends, his family there. What an incredible moment for him. And listen, where does he factor in? You and I, and even the next day, last Thursday at Encina, he agrees. Like, Isaac Howard's got to be up with this team. But I start looking at it now, like, all right, I think they do trade for a forward. Well, let's say they bring in that forward. You bring back Connor Geekie, Duke. Is Duke part of the plans this year, do you think? I mean, it just seems like his game, he's got a little grit to him, but I feel like he's got some scoring punch. I think he can possibly bring that grit that we get from an Asamont, but more of an offensive upside. Gonsalves has played a lot better. I know he's down playing in the AHL again, but he looked good playing with the top 6 guys.
He did. Yep.
What do you think of Dylan? I think Gage Gonsalves is going to get an opportunity, but what about Dylan Duke? Is he going to get a look, do you think, to contribute down the stretch?
I mean, we'll see. He was injured in December, so he missed a chunk of games. His skating still needs to get better, but he's come leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. With the skating, is a lot of players who put in the work do once they join this organization, get on the Barb Underhill plan. I think so. He's almost an ideal third line forward.
Yeah,
he's pesky. He works hard. He will battle you. I mean, just look at the goal he scored. It was his work along the boards that allowed that puck to stay in. He won that puck battle, got it back to the point, and then as he does, he was sniffing around the net, got that rebound and popped it in. And that's what he's so good at. He is so good around the net. You look at a lot of the goals, he led Michigan in scoring last year, I think at 23 or 24 goals for the Wolverines. I guarantee you most of them came from right around the paint. Mm-hmm. I think back to Yanni Gourde, when Yanni Gourde's breakout year offensively, he probably averaged 8 feet from the net scoring his goals. Might have been 6 feet from in, and Dylan Duke is going to do that too. He's got great hands around the net. He can tip pucks. So we'll see. He's not a blue chip prospect, but he is a guy that can be a contributor, and they certainly like the style of game that he plays. You think back many of the conversations I had with Al Murray through the years and what they looked for in players, especially once you start to get to the middle rounds. If you compete if you have a work ethic, if you have a hockey IQ, we will work with everything else.
Right.
And Dylan Duke kind of fits that role a little bit in a lot of ways. Leadership roles was something they looked at a lot as well. If your skating needs improvement, we can work with your skating and we'll get you to where we think we can get you to. So, yeah, I mean, could he be? Sure. We'll see what happens after the break and what they do. 3 home games, all against Western Conference teams coming out of the Four Nations break. But yeah, I think his play certainly in his debut, and he wasn't as noticeable in his second game against Montreal. But this is how the Lightning do things. They kind of give guys a little bit of a taste. This is what you need to do. Get a feel for it. Go back down, work on some things. And I think Syracuse has 5 games actually, including today. They're playing in Toronto today. Before the break ends. So there's going to be opportunities for him to go down and get a work on whatever he saw here at the NHL level, whatever they asked him to work on, he can go down and get it, much like Gonsalves. Gonsalves was obviously starting to struggle a little bit. He was deferring. He was not shooting the puck. So they told him to go down there, find that offensive confidence, work on those things. He's come back up much more assertive. When he was playing with Point and Kucherov, he wasn't deferring. And that's the thing you always look for a player in that situation when you're playing with top players like those guys. Are you deferring to what they're doing rather than playing with them? Right? So, there's a long way to go. But he is certainly somebody, if he's not used as somebody to trade to bring in a forward, then certainly, he's somebody that kind of fits into their plans. And look, I was kind of surprised he was brought up this early because I had some conversations with people and they said, yeah, his skating still needs to get there, still needs to be better. Lo and behold, 2 months later, he's up in the NHL.
It's a beautiful thing, and almost as beautiful as seeing Zemgus Girgensons finally scoring a goal doubly. We should throw a party. We should throw a party for that guy. What do you think he's doing during the break?
That's a good question. Enjoying the beach. As probably a lot of these guys are, especially with a lot of them probably went to the Caribbean, but with the weather we have right now, you don't have to go too far to enjoy a good beach day.
You got that right. We know that Zemgus probably didn't go back to Latvia. Make sure you go to lightninginsider.com, use that promo code JNZ, get $10 off, not just this year, but every recurring season. Follow him on Twitter /X Erik_Erlendsson. That's a K, not a C. 2 S's after the D. We're glad that you can see, my good friend. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday, buddy.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for accommodating me, and sorry the eye exam took too long.
It's all good, buddy. As long as you can see these pearly whites, you're good. Thanks, pal.
All right, bud.
See ya. Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. You gotta love it. Good stuff there. Great hockey talk as always. Four Nations and Tampa Bay Lightning. All right, I gotta roll because I got another podcast coming up. The Beckles and Recher podcast coming up right here on my YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll talk about some of the great things going on in sports. A big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program today, including Erik Erlendsson from lightninginsider.com, including my guy Chenzo Scanio, the new head baseball coach over at Steinbrenner High School, including, I don't know, stop saying including, Wes Mendes, Florida State pitcher, former Jesuit Baseball standout, and Rays radio Neil Solondz as we get closer and closer to opening day for our Tampa Bay Rays. Follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Please meet me there. Like, share, subscribe, like and subscribe on YouTube. I couldn't do it without you guys. Back in action tomorrow at noon. We'll have David Zimroth talking some college hoops and Ed Encina talking some hockey as well. Everybody have a wonderful Wednesday. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the J Recher Podcast. I am